Chapter 515. Of course, ancient Frost Island and the Xianyuan family were only slightly surprised by Shi Tiangong's words. Before the three sects formed an alliance, Kong Xiaoxiu had already said that God Emperor Jixia was in seclusion, trying to break through to the divine, sovereign level, so he wouldn't be involved in this war. It was for this reason that ancient Frost Island and the Xianyuan family had chosen to ally with the Jixia godly dynasty. In the current spiritual state, none of the 7 top forces and 10 super forces had a divine sovereign level. Once God Emperor Jixia succeeded in breaking through to the divine sovereign level, the Jixia godly dynasty would become the overlord of the spiritual state. If that happened, they, who had allied with the Jixia godly dynasty, would obtain great resources and benefits in the future. Cut the crap. Sure, Tiangang, it's time for me to repay the blood debt of God Emperor Jixia's younger generation. Kong Xiaoxiu's murderous intent surged, and evil ancient runes appeared on his skeletal staff. The might of a peak Emperor Venerate was clearly displayed from Kong Shadding's body, making one's heart tremble. Yes, it's time for us to settle the grudge between our sects today. Sure, Tiangong's eyes were cold as an ancient token appeared in his hand. Immediately, the sky disorder divine array above Imperial Palace trembled, and a terrifying aura swept across the sky. When Kong Shang, who was filled with killing intent, saw this, a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. This time, Imperial Palace didn't let Qin Yu control the divine array. This was beyond his expectations. Whoosh! Whoosh! Sure, Tiangang didn't give Kong Xiaoxiu any time to react, and he immediately controlled the divine array to attack. Beams of destructive divine light shot out from the sky disorder divine array like 10,000 arrows, tearing the void apart. The sovereigns of the Jixia godly dynasty all looked grave. The power of the sky disorder divine array was still deeply etched in their minds. No, it seems to be stronger. Soon, the Jixia godly dynasty discovered that the power of the sky disorder divine array was much more terrifying than before. Kill! Kong Xiaoxiu's cold, murderous gaze didn't change at all. He immediately ordered coldly. As the void trembled violently, great desolate beasts appeared among the black army. These great desolate beasts charged through the air, charging toward the sky disorder divine array without fear of death. Rumble! An earth-shattering battle broke out in an instant. Violent and destructive fluctuations swept out like a hurricane. For a time, space shattered while mountains and rivers collapsed. It was like the end of the world had arrived. At this moment, in the depths of the Sky Emperor Palace, in an ancient building, 5 figures were quietly teleporting away. The 5 of them were none other than Qin Yu, Sun Guxing, Sun Jiuxiao, Sun Yunlang, and Shi Tianyun. Shi Tianyun was the younger brother of Shi Tiangang. If there were no accidents, he would be the next emperor of the Imperial Palace. After Shi Tiangang confirmed that the sacrificial evil godly dynasty's main force had been mobilized, the primordial evil godly dynasty's main force had been mobilized. Qin Yu and the other 4 immediately teleported away. This was a plan for a 10,000-mile-long raid. Regardless of whether it succeeded or failed, it had to be done quickly. Therefore, other than Qin Yu's group of 5, they didn't bring anyone else. Too many people would be a burden. In a barren mountain somewhere in the northern region of the spiritual state, after the formation trembled, Qin Yu and the other 4 appeared in the air. This is the Black Devil Mountain range of the sacrificial, evil, godly dynasty. Sun Jiuxiao flew to the top of the barren mountain. After looking around, he couldn't hide the shock in his eyes. The Black Devil Mountain range was located in the center of the sacrificial, evil, godly dynasty. It was very close to the Imperial Palace of the sacrificial, evil, godly dynasty. Normally, this mountain range was the training ground for the descendants of the sacrificial, evil, godly dynasty. Qin Yu said that he had already left a teleportation array in the sacrificial, evil, godly dynasty. However, Sun Jiuxiao didn't expect that Qin Yu would leave a teleportation array in the center of the sacrificial, evil, godly dynasty. Other than the imperial palace in the center of the sacrificial evil godly dynasty, the 12 surrounding royal cities all have barriers set up. It could be said that the 12 royal cities themselves were a huge barrier. The purpose is to protect the imperial palace in the center. Therefore, we have to use a secret technique to escape underground and avoid the barriers of the 12 royal cities. This way, we can avoid the detection of the people of the sacrificial evil godly dynasty and quietly sneak into the imperial palace. Qin took out a map of the sacrificial evil godly dynasty, the imperial palace, and the 12 royal cities, and explained in detail. I heard that the barriers of the 12 royal cities are extremely powerful. If we leave them alone, we will encounter a strong resistance when we leave, Shi Tianyun said. Don't worry, I've already thought of a countermeasure for this. Not only will the barriers of these 12 royal cities not obstruct us, but they can even be used by us. Qin Yu's tone was very confident. He had a detailed plan to destroy the sacrificial evil godly dynasty. He had already taken the barriers of the 12 royal cities into consideration. If that's the case, let's move out, Sun Gushing said immediately after seeing that the divination didn't show any danger. Regardless of whether this plan succeeded or failed, they couldn't afford to drag it out. Let's go. Without hesitation, the 5 of them immediately burrowed into the ground. Under Qin Yu's lead, they easily passed through the barriers of the 12 royal cities and arrived outside the imperial palace. A ring of red divine light enveloped the entire imperial palace. That ring of red divine light was the sacrificial evil godly dynasty's great protective formation, the evil Emperor God realm. The evil Emperor God realm wasn't just a simple formation. It was a divine formation that merged formations and barriers. In other words, the sacrificial, evil, godly dynasty's imperial palace was visible to the naked eye. But in reality, it was located in another spatial barrier. Deep underground, Qin Yu and Sun Yunlang split up. Qin Yu started to break through the evil Emperor God realm, while Sun Yunlang secretly set up a formation. Their goal this time was to completely destroy the sacrificial, evil, godly dynasty's imperial palace. Therefore, they would not let anyone from the imperial city go in case any of the imperial family members escaped. Apart from that, the heavenly imperial palace wouldn't let the 12 royal families of the sacrificial, evil, godly dynasty go either. Only by destroying the imperial palace and the royal families would the sacrificial, evil, godly dynasty be completely destroyed. Of course, there was a priority to everything. Qin Yu and the others' current goal was still the sacrificial, evil, godly dynasty's imperial palace. Only after the imperial palace was destroyed would they deal with the 12 royal families. The 12 royal cities were quite far from the sacrificial, evil, godly dynasty's imperial palace. If the plan went smoothly, they could destroy the imperial palace before the 12 royal cities could react. Crack! Less than half an incense stick's worth of time later, Qin Yu broke through the evil Emperor God realm's barrier. At the same time, Sun Yunlang also set up a sealing barrier. The sacrificial, evil, godly dynasty's imperial palace was like a turtle in a jar. There was nowhere to run. Attack! Sun Gushing, Sun Jiuxiao, and Shi Tianyun were excited when they saw Qin Yu break through the evil Emperor God realm's barrier. Without the evil Emperor God realm, the imperial palace was like a fierce beast without claws and fangs. It was at their mercy. The moment the barrier was broken, the 3 of them followed Qin Yu into the evil Emperor God realm. Sun Yunlang stood guard outside the evil Emperor God realm. He was controlling the sealing enchantment to prevent the people of the imperial city from breaking through the enchantment and escaping. Chapter 516. Boom! Soon, an earth-shaking explosion came from the imperial city of the sacrificial evil god dynasty. Chaotic and destructive fluctuations swept across the land. But under Sun Yunlang's barrier, the outside world could not hear anything. Is this the top Emperor Realm Master? What happened? How did they pass through the evil Emperor God Realm? The evil Emperor God Realm is an ancient divine array. They can't break through the barrier silently. Quick! Take control of the evil Emperor God Realm and summon the God Emperor Dharma idol to suppress them. No, the evil Emperor God realm is out of control. Damn it, quickly informed the great prince. With the invasion of Sun Guxing, Sun Jiuxiao, and Shi Tianyun, the sacrificial evil god dynasty's imperial city was in chaos. Although there were nearly 100 Emperor Realm Death Guards in the imperial city, the difference in cultivation was too great. Under the joint attack of Sun Guxing, Sun Jiuxiao, and Shi Tianyun, the three top Emperor Realm Masters, the Emperor Realm Death Guards who tried to stop them were killed one after another. The last time the Heavenly Imperial Palace was in danger, the Divine Guards were able to stop the sacrificial evil god dynasty. It was because of the chaotic Heaven God Array, which affected the combat power of the sacrificial evil god dynasty and Five Ghost sect. Moreover, Sun Guxing was also present at that time, so he could barely stop the invasion of the sacrificial evil god dynasty. But now, the evil Emperor God realm was broken through by Qin Yu, and Sun Guxing, Shi Tianyun, and Shi Tianyun were all top Emperor Realm Masters. The battle prowess that the three of them could unleash when they joined forces was definitely enough to destroy the world. Therefore, even if the Death Guards of the sacrificial evil god dynasty tried their best to resist, it was useless. As for Qin Yu, when he entered the barrier, he quietly separated from Sun Guxing and the other two. At this time, Qin Yu had already entered the depths of the Imperial City and was searching the Imperial Palace. Just like the Heavenly Imperial Palace had the Ancestral Realm, the sacrificial evil god dynasty should have a similar place. The most likely place was the Imperial Palace in the Imperial City. After all, this was where the imperial family of the sacrificial evil god dynasty resided. When he sneaked in, Qin Yu also summoned the Skeleton Ghost King. The Skeleton Ghost King caused destruction in the Imperial City to attract the attention of the sacrificial evil god dynasty cultivators. With Qin Yu's current cultivation, he was able to sneak into the Imperial Palace after using the heaven-evading thief technique. Protect all members of the royal family and enter the ancestral shrine. The enemies who attacked this time were all peak emperors. Those below the Emperor realm have all entered the Ancestral Temple. In the Imperial Palace, the news of the invasion of three top-notch sovereigns made everyone panic. Everyone was moving in a certain direction. After secretly killing a member of the royal family, he disguised himself as Qin Yu. He followed the royal family members to the ancestral shrine of the evil-worshipping god dynasty. Several breaths later, Qin Yu arrived at the depths of the Imperial Palace, in front of a stone hall that was only several dozen zhang in size. The stone palace was built with ordinary stones, and there was nothing special about it. However, in this incomparably glorious imperial city, it was extremely eye-catching. Buzz, buzz, buzz. However, just as Qin Yu was about to step into the stone hall, a voice rang out. An evil and terrifying pressure suddenly descended from the stone palace. Qin Yu's expression changed slightly, and he immediately retreated. Bang! At this moment, an extremely terrifying evil force suddenly blasted the place where Qin Yu was standing. Immediately, blood splattered everywhere, and wreckage littered the ground. The people of the evil-worshipping god dynasty were affected, and they were directly smashed to pieces by the terrifying evil force. Oh no, an enemy has invaded. This sudden change scared the members of the royal family of the evil-worshipping god dynasty out of their wits. The Emperor Realm Guards of the evil-worshipping god dynasty also reacted immediately and rushed out to kill. Roar! Qin Yu did not even look at them, and a dragon roar rang out. The Emperor Realm Masters who had rushed over were all blasted into dust. It was the attack of the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon controlled by the dragon soul in the ancient dragon god seal, but it did not show up. It was better not to expose his trump cards if he could. This stone palace is a little strange. The dragon soul also sensed the situation of the stone palace while controlling the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon. Qin Yu narrowed his eyes slightly. In the stone palace, there was an extremely pure, evil spirit qi emitting. The purity was even higher than that of the evil-worshipping god emperor. Could it be that the evil spirit of the evil-worshipping god dynasty still exists in this world? After thinking for a moment, Qin Yu's figure flickered slightly, and he rushed towards the stone palace again. At the moment when he rushed out, Qin Yu formed hand seals with both of his hands. Evil shattering finger. When a vast evil force came crashing down again, Qin Yu suddenly pointed out with both hands. The terrifying finger broke through the air and directly tore apart the terrifying evil force. Bang! Then, Qin Yu's figure flickered, and he appeared in front of the stone palace, and a blood-red sword light flashed in the void. The god-slaying sword appeared, and it slashed out a series of destructive sword lights, and directly shattered the stone palace. The power of an ancient divine weapon was undoubtedly displayed. In the next moment, a chaotic, destructive shockwave burst out like a tsunami and swept over. More than half of the palace was destroyed in an instant. It was exactly as Qin Yu had anticipated. That stone palace was a secret realm. Now that the stone palace was destroyed by Qin Yu, the power of the secret realm completely erupted at this moment. That is, Qin Yu, who was surrounded by the eternal stone emperor's seal and blocked the chaotic, destructive shockwave, had a strange look in his eyes. In a shattered stone palace, a black figure more than 10 feet tall appeared. It was not a human figure, but a huge, ancient vine. No way. The evil spirit of the evil-worshipping god dynasty is still alive? Seeing this, the dragon's soul was in disbelief. The huge, ancient vine was the first-generation evil spirit of the evil-worshipping god dynasty. The path of the evil-worshipping god dynasty's sacrificial spirit was passed down by this first-generation evil spirit. This is not the original body. Qin Yu shook his head slightly. If it was really the evil spirit of the primordial era, Qin Yu would be in great trouble now. According to various ancient records, the evil spirit of the evil-worshipping god dynasty was born in the primordial era, and it was very likely that it had comprehended primordial immortal power. Primordial immortal power was strong enough to crush martial path, true origin power. The huge ancient vine in front of Qin Yu should only be a branch of the primordial evil spirit. Bang! Bang! When the huge ancient vine appeared, many of the surviving members of the evil-worshipping god dynasty's royal family exploded instantly. The bloodline of the evil-worshipping god dynasty's royal family members was completely devoured by the huge ancient vine. They could clearly feel that the evil spirit power of the huge ancient vine was becoming stronger and more terrifying. The evil spirit has appeared? This is great. The people of the evil-worshipping god dynasty who had gathered were all excited when they saw the huge ancient vine. The evil-worshipping god dynasty's guardian spirit rarely appeared when the country was offering sacrifices. They did not expect it to appear at such a critical moment. Whoosh! 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 Sun Guxing, Sun Jiuxiao, and Shi Tianyin also sensed it and immediately flew over. The evil-worshipping god dynasty's guardian spirit? Sun Guxing and the other two looked a little serious when they saw the huge ancient vine. The aura emitted by the huge ancient vine caused them to feel a little fearful. Elder Sun, this should be the last trump card of the evil-worshipping god dynasty. I'll leave it to you. When Sun Guxing and the other two arrived, Qin Yu did not attack and immediately retreated. Chapter 517. Whoosh! That enormous ancient vine guardian spirit seemed to have its eyes on Qin Yu. Accompanied by a strong wind like a tornado, a pitch-black vine shadow broke through the air and flew out. Qin Yu only felt his entire body tighten. At this moment, the void was oppressing him, leaving him with nowhere to run. Slash! Just as the dragon soul was about to use its space-time divine ability to help Qin Yu escape, a loud roar rang out. Then, a beam of dazzling starlight pierced through the void and pierced through the vine shadow. Whoosh! Qin Yu didn't hesitate. His figure flashed, and he immediately flew away. Rumble! Sun Guxing, Sun Jiuxiao, and Shi Tianyin immediately entangled the giant ancient vine guardian spirit that attacked again. The battle prowess of the giant ancient vine guardian spirit was no weaker than a peak emperor. Even when surrounded by Sun Gushing and the other two, the ancient Vine Guardian spirit did not seem to be at a disadvantage. The four of them fought in the void. Violent and destructive shockwaves swept across the world. The cultivators around the sacrificial evil god dynasty were caught in the crossfire and died before they could even escape. Qin Yu, who had retreated from the chaotic battle, took the chance to kill a member of the royal family of the sacrificial evil god dynasty. After soul searching and soul refining, Qin Yu headed toward a certain place in the sacrificial evil god dynasty's imperial city. A short while later, Qin Yu arrived at a secret realm in the sacrificial evil god dynasty's imperial city. In that secret realm, there was a vast ocean of rare treasures. This was a secret realm where the imperial family members of the worshipful evil god dynasty stored their cultivation resources. This was one of the reasons why Qin Yu wanted to destroy the sacrificial evil god dynasty. To the current Qin Yu, cultivation resources were exactly what he lacked. Qin Yu's eyes flashed with joy. The purple lightning divine dragon had already reached the peak of martial emperor. As long as he could refine the thunder-crossing immortal pill, he would be able to steadily advance to the emperor realm. However, the golden flame heaven-burning dragon's cultivation was too weak. Right now, he was only a rank 4 martial emperor. However, with such vast resources, it wouldn't be difficult for him to break through to the emperor realm. Immediately, Qin Yu's thoughts moved, and the divine dragon ancient seal appeared. The cultivation resources in the secret realm were immediately stored into the ancient seal of the divine dragon. Although this secret realm was extremely large, it paled in comparison to the divine dragon ancient seal. Soon, all the resources in the entire mystic realm were collected by Qin Yu. Just as Qin Yu was about to leave the secret realm with a bountiful harvest, he suddenly sensed something and exclaimed softly, "What did you find?" Seeing this, the dragon's soul immediately sensed it, but it did not sense anything unusual. There is an extremely weak fluctuation of the ancient immortal token. Qin Yu was a little bewildered. He immediately took out the ancient immortal token that Blood Devil had given him. The ancient immortal token's ripple, which was originally undetectable, suddenly became clear. Qin Yu immediately flew over. He found a sealed ancient immortal token in a mysterious illusory formation in the secret realm. That's 3 ancient immortal badges. The dragon's soul's eyes shone with joy. According to the Blood Devil, to break the immortal energy seal at the center of the immortal treasure, he had to find all 8 ancient immortal tokens. Qin Yu had obtained the ancient immortal token from the Sky Suppression Ghost Emperor in the Sky Dragon continent. The Blood Devil had given him another one in the Blood Devil continent. Now, with this one, Qin Yu had nearly half of the 8 ancient immortal tokens. Of the remaining 5, one was taken by Xing Luo in the Wildlands, and the other 4 were missing. Of course, if Qin Yu was focused on searching, he could still sense them with the ancient immortal token given by the Blood Devil. However, Qin Yu's current focus was not on the ancient immortal tokens. Qin Yu's plan was to recover his cultivation and get his revenge before he went to find all the ancient immortal tokens. This is a pleasant surprise. Qin Yu put away the ancient immortal command plate. After wandering around the secret realm once, he turned around and left. Rumble. At this time, the battle between Sun Gushing and the ancient Vine Guardian spirit had come to an end. The ancient Vine Guardian spirit had devoured the bloodline of the sacrificial evil god dynasty's imperial family. In a short time, it had gained strength comparable to a peak sovereign, but it was still an external force. As the battle dragged on, the gap between it and Sun Gushing's group was gradually revealed. Soul of Death. Finally, under Sun Gushing's secret divination skill, the ancient Vine Guardian spirit was smashed into countless pieces. At this point, the sacrificial evil god dynasty's final trump card had been completely destroyed. Without any resistance, Sun Gushing's group of 3 worked together to use a supreme secret technique. The void of the imperial city was torn apart, and a destructive spatial storm was summoned. In the blink of an eye, the sacrificial evil god dynasty's imperial city, which had been mostly destroyed, was completely destroyed by the spatial storm. In fact, that spatial storm even contained destructive might as it swept forth in all directions. With the sacrificial evil god dynasty's imperial palace as the center, the entire evil emperor god realm was gradually being ravaged by the destructive storm. The sacrificial evil god dynasty's martial practitioners who had wanted to escape the evil emperor god realm when they saw the unfavorable situation. In the face of the destructive storm, their souls were completely scattered. After such a big commotion, the 12 royal cities can't have received the news already, right? Sun Guxing's group of 4 looked at Qin Yu after seeing all the martial practitioners of the sacrificial evil god dynasty's imperial city dead. They were not at all moved by the death of the sacrificial evil god dynasty's martial practitioners. In the world of martial practitioners, there was no such thing as good or evil. There was only the strong and the weak. For example, if the heavenly imperial palace was no match for the 6 great sects, it would not be able to escape the fate of being destroyed. On the contrary, they were worried that Sun Yunlong's sealing barrier would not be able to conceal the huge commotion caused by the destruction of the imperial city. The sealing boundary that Sun Yunlang had set up was mostly used to seal the fluctuations in the void. Any major force with a bit of foundation would have a spirit artifact that could sense life and death. Sun Yunlong's sealing barrier was to prevent the deaths of those martial practitioners from being discovered by Kong Xiaxiu and the others. Therefore, the 12 royal cities were very likely to notice the huge commotion in the imperial city. Don't worry, even if they receive the news, they won't be able to escape the barrier they set up. Qin Yu smiled confidently. The barrier he set up was not that easy to break. It was even impossible to send out the news. Sun Guxing's group of 3 was relieved to hear Qin Yu's words. After the previous operation, they were very confident in Qin Yu's words. The 3 of them still found it hard to believe that the imperial family of the sacrificial evil god dynasty had been destroyed so easily. After all, this was something that the heavenly imperial palace had dreamed of for hundreds of years, but had not been able to do. Other than being shocked, they also became even more fearful of Qin Yu. In fact, they even became alert. Qin Yu's means were too terrifying. If they were enemies, they would not be able to live a day in peace. The situation was just as Sun Guxing's group of 4 had feared. The 12 royal cities had indeed received the news. The experts of the 12 royal families who had left with Kong Xiaxiu were all in a panic. Countless martial practitioners wanted to escape from the 12 royal cities. Unfortunately, the barriers they set up in the 12 royal cities were controlled by Qin Yu. The territory of the 12 royal cities immediately became an absolute isolation zone. There was nowhere to run. Chapter 5:18. Qin Yu was in charge of the boundaries of the 12 royal cities. Sun Guxing, Sun Yunlang, Sun Jiuxiao, and Shi Tianyun were engaged in a bloody massacre in their respective royal cities. In less than an hour, the 12 royal families of the sacrificial evil god court had been massacred. No one was left alive. At this point, the risky operation of the heavenly imperial palace had come to an end. Of course, this was only the first phase of the plan. The royal families of the sacrificial evil god court were still attacking the heavenly imperial palace. Therefore, the second phase of Qin Yu's plan was to kill as many people of the sacrificial evil god court as possible. Although it was not possible to kill all of them, it would be best to kill as many as possible. Send an order back to the palace and inform the palace master. When we teleport back, we will attack from both sides. Sun Jiuxiao said to Sun Yunlang immediately after the 12 royal cities had been destroyed and they had regrouped. Understood. Sun Yunlang was already prepared, and he quickly executed his Array Dao secret skill. Shun Feng, when we return to the palace, you will control the chaotic heavenly divine array. Sun Guxing said to Qin Yu as they flew towards the teleportation formation of the Black Demon Mountain Range. Attacking the army of the sacrificial evil god court from both sides was not as easy as attacking the royal cities of the sacrificial evil god court. The royal cities were destroyed, and the royal families were killed. This would definitely be a devastating blow to the martial artists of the sacrificial evil god court. On the other hand, the people of the sacrificial evil god court might go berserk and even burn their boats. The heavenly imperial palace would have to pay a high price to kill as many people of the sacrificial evil god court as possible. Therefore, there was no need for Qin Yu to get involved in such a large-scale battle. Qin Yu's priority now was to control the chaotic heavenly divine array and protect the heavenly imperial palace. All right, Qin Yu nodded and did not get involved in the battle. After this battle, the sacrificial evil god court would be removed from the heaven domain. For Qin Yu, one of the 12 orthodoxies of the ancient emperors had been destroyed. As for how many of the remnants of the sacrificial evil god court would escape, Qin Yu did not care. Qin Yu's current state was enough to kill the top sovereigns. When he became even stronger in the future, those who escaped would not be able to pose any threat to him. At this moment, in the imperial palace of heaven, rumble, the battle that shook the entire spiritual state was still going on. With the chaotic sky divine formation as the boundary, the heavenly imperial palace, the sacrificial evil god dynasty, the ancient cold island, the heavenly sun holy land, the Xianyuan family, and the sage god dynasty. Over 100,000 experts from the 6 major forces engaged in a frenzied battle. There were countless casualties on both sides. Originally, it was because of the departure of Sun Jiuxiao and the other 3 peak emperors. The Sky Emperor Palace was at a disadvantage in this battle. However, the Heavenly Sun Holy Land and the Saint Sage Divine Dynasty had each sent a top emperor to support them. The main forces involved in this war were the sacrificial Evil God Dynasty and the Heavenly Imperial Palace. Therefore, the Heavenly Sun Holy Land, the Sage Divine Dynasty, the Ancient Cold Island, and the Xianyuan family did not go all out. Just in case, each of their forces had left their top experts behind to guard their bases. Buzz, buzz, buzz. It was at this moment that Shi Tiangang, who was controlling the chaotic heaven god formation to suppress the sacrificial evil god dynasty and the others, suddenly felt his right hand tremble. Did you succeed? Shi Tiangong's eyes suddenly brightened. The array pattern on his right hand trembled. This meant that the plan to ambush the sacrificial evil god dynasty had been successfully completed. This naturally made Shi Tiangang extremely excited. Now that the sacrificial evil god dynasty's imperial palace had been destroyed, the next step was to deal with Kong Shang and the others. Shi Tiangang immediately sent a voice transmission to inform the Heavenly Sun Holy Lord and the Sage Divine Lord. In order to prevent spies from leaking the information, Shi Tiangang only told the masters of the 2 major forces about the operation of Sun Guxing, Qin Yu, and the others. Apart from that, Shi Tiangang did not even tell the descendants of the Sky Emperor Palace's 3 sovereigns. Hearing Shi Tiangong's voice transmission, the Heavenly Sun, Holy Lord, and the Sage Divine Lord's expressions brightened. The destruction of the sacrificial evil god dynasty's imperial palace was not only great news for the Sky Emperor Palace. It was also good news for their 2 major forces. This meant that their 2 forces would not only receive the benefits that the Sky Emperor Palace had promised them, they would also receive a huge amount of resources from the sacrificial evil god dynasty. Now that the Sky Emperor Palace had completely destroyed the sacrificial evil god dynasty, it would be difficult for them to monopolize the northern region as they had been in the past. Therefore, they would definitely receive a huge benefit from this. This benefit would allow their forces to greatly increase. Everyone get ready. Execute Plan B. After another incensed stick of time, Shi Tiangang immediately sent an order to the martial practitioners of the Sky Emperor Palace. Immediately, the Sky Emperor Palace's allied army, which had been madly fighting with the experts of the sacrificial evil god dynasty's 3 sects, began to retreat. They fought as they retreated toward the chaotic sky divine formation. You want to escape? Hold them back. When Kong Shashio saw this, the murderous intent in his eyes soared as he immediately gave the order. He did not know why the Sky Emperor Palace's allied army had suddenly been destroyed. However, this was naturally a good opportunity for the sacrificial evil god dynasty's three sects, who wanted to attack the Sky Emperor Palace. As long as they could hold back the Sky Emperor Palace's three sects, the Sky Emperor Palace's chaotic sky, divine formation, would be restricted. The Sky Emperor Palace would not go so far as to kill their own martial practitioners. As long as they passed through the sacrificial evil god dynasty, the Sky Emperor Palace would be right in front of them. The situation was as Kong Shashio and the others had expected. As they held back the Sky Emperor Palace's forces, Shi Tiangang did his best to control the chaotic sky divine formation. However, he was still unable to stop them. In an instant, more than 100,000 martial practitioners swarmed into the chaotic sky divine formation. Kong Shashio could tell from the previous battle. The power of the chaotic sky divine formation had indeed increased a lot. However, in terms of control, Shi Tiangang was far inferior to Qinyu. Just as the sacrificial evil god dynasty's three sects charged into the chaotic sky divine formation, an intense battle was about to begin again. Many Emperor realm masters of the three sects' allied army seemed to have sensed something and turned their heads to look. An array Dao barrier? Kong Shashio also sensed it instantly and hurriedly turned his head to take a look. He saw ancient spirit runes and divine runes floating in the void a few thousand meters away, intertwining in the void. In the blink of an eye, a huge ancient spirit array appeared in the void a few thousand meters away from the Sky Emperor Palace. It was like a divine barrier that enveloped the entire Sky Emperor Palace. The Sky Emperor Palace's second plan was to lure the enemy in. The sacrificial evil god dynasty's three sects allied army had fallen into a two-sided pincer attack. What's going on? Is this the Sky Emperor Palace's ambush? Could it be that the Sky Emperor Palace's three sects want to swallow us whole? This sudden turn of events caused a huge disturbance in the allied army of the sacrificial evil god dynasty's three sections. The martial practitioners who were entangled with the Sky Emperor Palace's forces could not help but stop and gather together. Don't panic. They're just bluffing. Kong Shashio immediately spoke to calm the army's morale. Although he said so, Kong Shashio still had an extremely bad premonition in his heart, especially when he saw the Sky Emperor Palace's three sects cultivators who were retreating stay in the void. When it did not take even half a step back, the bad feeling in his heart became even stronger. At this moment, Kong Shashio could not help but think of Sun Guxing and the other three who had not shown up before. Chapter 519. Just like how Heavenly Imperial Palace knew Sacrificial Evil God Dynasty, Sacrificial Evil God Dynasty knew Heavenly Imperial Palace's top masters like the back of their hand. During the previous battle, Kong Shashio had been quite concerned about the disappearance of Sun Jiuxiao and the other three, so he had been on guard. Now, it seemed that Heavenly Imperial Palace was really preparing something in secret. However, even if Sun Guxing and the other three appeared, it would not change the current situation. A battle on the level of the six great sects was not something that could be changed by a few mere top emperors. Bluffing? Haha, Kong Shashio, from today onwards, your sacrificial evil god dynasty will be completely erased from the 9 provinces of the Heaven Domain. Shi Tiangang sneered when he saw the sky covering array. The Heavenly Sun Holy Master and Sage Divine Master also appeared beside Shi Tiangang. With just you? Shameless boasting. Kong Shashio's heart sank slightly, but he still snorted coldly, not backing down at all. At this moment, 4 figures appeared from the giant ancient formation that shrouded the heavens and earth. It was Sun Guxing and the other 3. Let me show you something good. Sun Guxing and Shi Tiangang looked at each other and flicked their fingers, sending a white light into the chaotic sky god array. In the next moment, the white light exploded, and various scenes were revealed. Those scenes were the destruction of sacrificial evil god dynasties, imperial city, and the 12 king cities. This is impossible. Absolutely impossible. What happened? The sacrificial evil god dynasty's people were shocked when they saw the imperial city destroyed by the space storm. The sacrificial evil god dynasty's imperial family and royal family were destroyed by heavenly imperial palace. The Emperor realm masters of ancient Cold Island and Xianyuan family were also shocked when they saw the scenes on the light screen. They were still here, desperately besieging heavenly imperial palace. They did not expect heavenly imperial palace to turn around and destroy the sacrificial evil god dynasty. My divine dynasty's imperial city is protected by the evil emperor realm. Even if a divine emperor comes personally, he can't break it. Do you think that you can deceive us with a mere illusion? Kong Shashio's face changed drastically, and a sinister sneer appeared on his face. He did not believe that their sacrificial evil god dynasty's imperial family would be destroyed. Patriarch, a spirit's secret technique. Island Master, the High Priestess sent a message. However, just as Kong She finished speaking, the Xianyuan family patriarch and the ancient Cold Island's Island Master both received a secret letter. The enchantment of the imperial city of the sacrificial evil god dynasty has been broken. The royal family has been annihilated. The evil sacrificial god dynasty once released a vast amount of evil energy into the world, but it disappeared soon after. No one from the evil sacrificial god dynasty survived. I suspect that the evil sacrificial god emperor has met with misfortune, and the heavenly imperial palace is being supported by a super expert. After the master of the Xianyuan family and the master of the ancient Cold Island received their respective secret letters, their expressions changed. It seemed that the imperial city of the sacrificial evil god dynasty had really been destroyed by the heavenly imperial palace. According to Kong Shashio, God Emperor Jixie, who was recovering his cultivation in seclusion, might have already died. The confirmation of this news was an earthquake for the Xianyuan family and ancient Cold Island. Could it be true? Noticing the expressions of the people of ancient Cold Island and Xianyuan family, Kong Shashio's heart sank. He once again looked at the imperial city that had been destroyed by the spatial storm, and his eyes were still filled with extreme disbelief. The evil Emperor God realm had protected the sacrificial evil god dynasty for countless years, and it had never been breached since the Eastern continent. Even he, who knew the structure of the evil Emperor God realm, couldn't break through it as long as there was an emperor guarding it. How could the heavenly imperial palace have done it? Of course, after disbelief, anger and sorrow quickly filled Kong Shashio's heart. Looking at the destroyed imperial city, Kong Shashio's sinister eyes were filled with monstrous killing intent. The imperial family had been destroyed, and the imperial city had been destroyed. The sacrificial evil god dynasty was truly going to fall from grace. It would take at least 1,000 years to nurture the foundation of an everlasting dynasty. Master of the Xianyuan family, master of the ancient Cold Island. This battle is purely between the heavenly imperial palace and the sacrificial evil god dynasty. There's no need for your two sects to get involved, is there? As long as you leave with your people, I can guarantee that today's matter will never happen. What do you think? Sure, Tiangang ignored Kong Shashio, who was filled with killing intent, and looked directly at the ancient Cold Island and the Xianyuan family. The reason these two forces learned of the destruction of the sacrificial evil god dynasties, Imperial City and Imperial City, so quickly was because of Shuang. Sun Guxing and the other three had purposely leaked the news to the two forces before they returned. If they hadn't confirmed it with their own eyes, the Xianyuan family and ancient Cold Island wouldn't have retreated so easily. If the Xianyuan family and ancient Cold Island still joined forces with the sacrificial evil god dynasty and fought to the death with them, if they wanted to destroy the sacrificial evil god dynasty's army, they would have to pay a huge price. Hearing Shi Tiangong's words, the master of the ancient Cold Island and the master of the Xianyuan family fell silent. Since the sacrificial evil god dynasty's base had been destroyed, this alliance naturally had no meaning. One could imagine that the resources of the sacrificial evil god dynasty would soon become a new storm zone. Even if Kong Shashio and the others' main forces were still intact, they wouldn't be able to stop such a situation. Moreover, the three sects of the Heavenly Imperial Palace were still eyeing them. It was hard to say whether Kong Shashio and the others could leave successfully. Brother Xinyuan, Brother Gu, we've already broken into the Heavenly Imperial Palace's divine formation. We just need to take one more step, and we'll be able to destroy it completely. Are you going to give up so easily? As long as you help me destroy the Heavenly Imperial Palace, when this battle is over, I'll give you double the conditions I promised before. Whether it's the Heavenly Imperial Palace or my dynasty, I'll give them to the two of you. I won't take any of them. How about it? Seeing this, Kong Shashio's eyes flashed with cold, killing intent as he hurriedly sent a message to discuss. Hearing this, the Xinyuan family and ancient cold islands' expressions changed. Kong Shashio's conditions were indeed very tempting. The current sacrificial evil god dynasty had no way out. They could only fight with all their might. At this time, the morale of the sacrificial evil god dynasty would probably be much higher than before. Coupled with the trump card prepared by the sacrificial evil god dynasty, it was indeed possible to break the chaotic sky god array and destroy the Heavenly Imperial Palace. If an Emperor Realm Master wanted to self-destruct, even a high-level cultivator would find it difficult to stop him. And if a peak Emperor Realm Master self-destructed, the Heavenly Imperial Palace would be destroyed without a doubt. If the Heavenly Imperial Palace lost its foothold, it would end up like the sacrificial evil god dynasty. These two top forces would be removed from the spiritual state. The resources and benefits they could obtain would naturally be more shocking. You two still have a mood to play here. Just as the Xinyuan family and ancient Cold Island were tempted, a chuckle sounded. It was sure Tianyan. What do you mean? Hearing this, the expressions of the Xinyuan family and ancient Cold Island couldn't help but change slightly. No matter how one looked at it, Sure Tianyan's smile seemed to hide a deep conspiracy. You brought so many masters out. Aren't you worried that something bad will happen to your two sects? Sure Tianyan said with a smile. Chapter 520. The moment Sure Tianyun said that, the Xinyuan family and ancient Frost Islands' faces changed drastically. Since Heavenly Imperial Palace could silently destroy the divine world barrier of the sacrificial evil god dynasty and destroy the Imperial family and the 12 royal families in such a short time, there was no way they could do it. If there was a way to wipe out the two main sects, it wouldn't be impossible for them to do so. Let's go. Thinking of this, the greed in the hearts of the two sects immediately dissipated, and they left with their people. Apart from the Xinyuan family and ancient Frost Island, the other super forces that were involved did not dare to stay any longer and immediately left. Heavenly Imperial Palace naturally would not stop them at this time. In fact, Sure Tiangang even controlled the chaotic sky divine formation to open up an empty path, allowing them to retreat. In the blink of an eye, the army of more than 100,000 cultivators was cleared out. The people of the sacrificial evil god dynasty looked at the army of the three sects with ashen faces. When the Xinyuan family and ancient Frost Island retreated, the cultivators of Heavenly Imperial Palace's three sects silently surrounded them. Big brother, what we do now? Didn't you say that there were reinforcements in the dark? Why haven't they appeared yet? A peak emperor of the sacrificial evil god dynasty appeared before the gloomy Kong Shashio and discussed with him. The current situation was that the sacrificial evil god dynasty had fallen into a desperate situation. If they did not think of a way to escape, they would have to stay here forever. Can we still count on them to help at this time? Kong Shashio smiled bitterly. His gloomy and sharp eyes seemed to have aged countless years at this moment. Originally, they were determined to destroy Heavenly Imperial Palace. In the end, they were suppressed by Heavenly Imperial Palace and forced into such a desperate situation. Kill. Sure Tiangang did not give Kong Shashio and the others time to discuss and immediately ordered coldly. Rumble. An earth-shattering battle broke out again. Even the sky chaotic divine array could not completely conceal the destructive power of the battle. Although the battle was intense, it was no longer a battle of mutual slaughter. Now it was a one-sided slaughter. The combined forces of the three peak forces and several super forces were enough to completely crush the sacrificial evil god dynasty. Shi Tiangang and the other peak emperors kept Kong Shatting and the others busy while suppressing the cultivators of the sacrificial evil deity dynasty with their superior numbers. The sacrificial evil god dynasty that was fighting and retreating at the same time was in a more and more difficult situation. If you want to keep us here, we'll have to see if you can bear the consequences. Kong Shang's expression grew even more ghastly and terrifying when he saw this. With a flip of his right hand, an ancient scroll appeared in his hand. The ancient scroll opened, and a boundless divine might descended. That divine might was so terrifying that it was like an ancient god had descended, and it seemed capable of destroying everything. Primordial divine power. All the Emperor Realm Masters present turned pale with fright. They had also fused with the primordial divine power. However, the ancient era's divine power that they had fused with their true origin was far from comparable to the terrifying pressure emitted by the ancient scroll in Kong Shatting's hand. This is, within the Sky Emperor Palace, Qin Yu, who was not involved in the battle, had a change in expression. Kong Shatting's ancient scroll actually contained the ripples of a divine power imprint within the primordial divine power it emitted. Could it be? A thought suddenly flashed through Qin Yu's mind as he vaguely guessed the intentions of the sacrificial evil god dynasty. Immediately, Qin Yu's figure flickered as he charged out of the void. Burn! After opening the ancient scroll, Kong Shatting's face revealed a hideous and terrifying expression. Immediately after, flames erupted from all over his body as his true origin and Tao arts burned madly. In the flames, one could see the primordial divine power that had been separated from the primordial divine power burning. In other words, it was the burning of those primordial divine power that had ignited Kong Shatting's true origin and Tao arts. What is he trying to do? Seeing this scene, Shi Tiangang and the other peak Emperor Realm Masters became extremely vigilant. The flames burning on Kong Shatting's body were simply too terrifying. The divine abilities and secret techniques they used were instantly incinerated the moment they came into contact with those primordial divine power flames. Originally, Shi Tiangang and the other cultivators of the three sects thought that Kong Shatting wanted to self-destruct. However, judging from the current situation, it was not as simple as self-destruction. Divine power, sacrifice. Seeing Shi Tiangang staring at him with extreme vigilance, the madness in Kong Shatting's eyes became even more intense. As he formed a seal with his hands, he shouted loudly. Wisps of divine flames shot out from his body towards the Emperor Realm Masters of the three sects' allied forces. Those divine power flames seemed to have the ability to pierce through the void. All attacks and secret techniques passed through them. A hair-raising feeling of impending death appeared in the hearts of Shi Tiangang and the other peak emperors. Xiao 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 xiao. Just as those divine power flames were about to reach Shi Tiangang and the other Emperor Realm Masters, dazzling divine light descended from the sky, transforming into divine light barriers that blocked those divine power flames. Shen Feng. Seeing the changes in the chaotic heaven divine array, Shi Tiangang immediately reacted. In the entire heavenly imperial palace, only Shen Feng could control the chaotic heaven divine array so thoroughly. Seal! With a low shout, the space within the chaotic heaven divine array suddenly surged like a torrent. Immediately, the divine light barriers, with Kong Shatting at the center, began to shrink rapidly. Before Kong Shatting could react, the divine power flames that shot out were all compressed into his body. Hong Long. With a heaven-shaking explosion, Kong Shatting's entire body exploded. Violent tsunami-like divine power shockwaves swept through the world, wreaking havoc and destruction. The divine light barrier created by Qin Yu directly shattered. Unfathomably deep void cracks appeared in the void. What terrifying power! Tian Gang and the other peak emperors could not help but change their expressions when they saw this scene. The fluctuations from the explosion of ancient divine power were too terrifying. If they were hit head-on, even if they did not die, they would be severely injured. Let's go. However, Kong Shatting, who everyone thought was dead for sure, actually did not die in the midst of those violent divine power fluctuations. In fact, Kong Shatting even took advantage of these violent shockwaves. He immediately led the sacrificial evil god dynasty and charged into the pitch-black void crack. Tian Gang and the other peak emperors of the three sects were inside the chaotic heaven divine array. Outside the chaotic heaven divine array, the ancient array, set up by Sun Gushing and the other three peak emperors, were eyeing them covetously. Their only chance at survival was to escape into the chaotic void. Trying to run? Qin Yu, who was controlling the chaotic heaven divine array, had a cold glint in his eyes when he saw this. He formed a seal with his hands. Immediately, a terrifying space-time energy fused into the chaotic heaven divine array. The chaotic heaven divine array shook violently. Beams of light containing the power of space and time continuously shot into the pitch-black spatial rifts. One could clearly see that the void crack had become incomparably chaotic. In an instant, thousands of sacrificial evil god emperor and the other peak emperors were killed in the chaotic void crack. Their bodies and bones were shattered. Chapter 521. However, at the last moment, Kong Shashio had risked his life to use a secret technique. He had teleported the other martial artists of the sacrificial evil god dynasty away from the chaotic void and disappeared into the spatial crack. After sensing that the people of the sacrificial evil god dynasty had completely disappeared, Qin Yu stopped and dispersed the chaotic sky divine array. At this point, the battle between the six top forces that had shaken the entire spiritual state had come to an end. In the end, the Xinyuan family and ancient Frost Island had left in a sorry state. More than half of the experts of the sacrificial evil god dynasty had been killed. It was only a matter of time before the dynasty was wiped out from the heaven realm. After the battle, the heavenly imperial palace, the heavenly sun's sacred land, the sage divine dynasty, and several other superforces were extremely excited. Although they had all suffered great losses in this battle, it was still a huge loss. Compared to the benefits they were about to obtain, it was not worth mentioning at all. Therefore, after the battle, Tian Gang and the other leaders gathered together. After a short discussion, they all started to act. It was only a matter of time before the results of the battle spread. Therefore, before the other forces acted, they had to firmly control the resources of the sacrificial evil god dynasty. They did not want the spoils of war that they had worked so hard to obtain to be taken by someone else. Qin Yu did not act again. After the battle, he returned to the palace where he lived. The sacrificial evil god dynasty had been destroyed, and his goal had been accomplished. However, the secret technique that Kong Shashio had used at the last moment to ignite the ancient divine power had caught Qin Yu's attention. The ancient scroll that Kong Shashio had taken out did contain a trace of the divine power mark. Although it could not be compared to the divine power mark, it probably had some of its abilities. More importantly, when Kong Shashio had used those divine power flames, Qin Yu felt that the ancient divine power in the divine power mark had faintly gone out of control, as if it was about to spontaneously combust. From the previous battle between the three sects, there was definitely the shadow of the extraterritorial demon race behind the sacrificial evil god dynasty. The extraterritorial demon race could suppress the ancient divine power in a martial artist's body. This was something that Qin Yu had long known. However, directly igniting the ancient divine power in a martial artist's body was greatly beyond Qin Yu's expectations. Currently, almost all the powerful sovereigns in the heaven realm had merged with the ancient divine power. If the extraterritorial demon race invaded, the consequences would be immeasurable. As for the sacrificial evil god dynasty, he had escaped into a crack in space, and no one knew whether he was alive or dead. The heavenly imperial palace and the three sects sent countless experts to worship the evil god dynasty in an ancient stone palace in the northern region of the spiritual state. There were tens of thousands of cultivators with powerful auras watching the battle that had just ended. I didn't expect Sky Emperor Palace to have such a hidden card. A deep voice sounded. A middle-aged, burly man whose aura was so oppressive that the void exploded muttered to himself in bewilderment. If the masters of the spiritual state were here, they would definitely recognize him. These people were the leader of the 7 top forces in the spiritual state, the Wanwu sect. The muscular man holding the divine spear was the 10,000 martial sect's divine master, Wanwu Zun. Indeed, even with our foundation, it's impossible for us to breach the defenses of the sacrificial evil god dynasty's evil emperor god realm in a short period of time. We need to reevaluate the strength of Sky Emperor Palace. A white-bearded old man wearing battle armor said, "Let's talk about this later. Are we not going to interfere with the resources of the sacrificial evil god dynasty?" A white-robed youth with weathered eyes next to the white-bearded old man spoke. "Of course we're going to interfere. We've prepared for so long. We can't leave empty-handed." The 10,000 martial sect's divine master spoke. Their original goal was to use Kong Shatting to perform a divine power sacrifice and ignite the ancient divine power in the bodies of the sovereigns. They wanted to take advantage of the situation and capture them all in one fell swoop. Who would have thought that Sky Emperor Palace would have the means to destroy the imperial city of the sacrificial evil god dynasty? This unforeseen event completely disrupted their plans. Speaking of which, don't you think it's strange? Kong Shatting clearly performed a divine power sacrifice, so why didn't he ignite the ancient divine power of the others? The white-robed youth's hoarse voice was filled with intense confusion. I remember that Sky Emperor Palace took control of the divine formation at the last moment and interrupted Kong Shatting's divine power sacrifice. The white-bearded old man said, "That's the strangest part, isn't it? The sacred ancestor once said that once a primordial divine power sacrifice is made, it can't be stopped. All the primordial divine power within the range of the sacrifice will automatically be sacrificed." The white-robed youth's words were astonishing. Does this mean that Sky Emperor Palace's Shi Tiangang has a way to stop the divine power sacrifice? The white-bearded old man's eyes flashed with a strange light. No, if Sky Emperor Palace really did have a way to stop the divine power sacrifice, then the one stopping it wouldn't be Shi Tiangang, but as the 10,000 martial sect's divine master spoke, he flicked his finger. The scene of Kong Shatting performing a divine power sacrifice, but being suppressed by the barrier of divine light, appeared once more. The gaze of the 10,000 martial sect's divine master was focused on the faintly discernible Qinyu within the chaotic heaven divine array. There is no doubt that Shi Tiangang was not the one controlling the chaotic sky divine formation at the last moment. This boy again? The white-bearded old man and white-robed youth raised their eyebrows. They were no stranger to Qinyu. Back in the spiritual state war, he had crushed the strongest prodigy of the 10,000 martial sect. When the sacrificial evil god dynasty joined forces with the Five Ghost sect, Qinyu had turned the tide. And now it was Qinyu again? This boy Shun Feng isn't simple. We need to investigate his background. The 10,000 martial sect's divine master stared at Qinyu and spoke slowly. "I will take care of this matter." The white-bearded old man nodded. "Sect master, when will we act in the fight for the resources of the sacrificial evil god dynasty?" The white-robed youth asked the 10,000 martial sect's divine master. In this battle, the Xinyuan family and ancient Frost Island both suffered heavy losses. They won't let it go so easily. We will act after they are involved. No matter what, we can't let the resources of the northern region fall into the hands of the 3 factions of Sky Emperor Palace. The 10,000 martial sect's divine master said, after some thought. After the discussion, the tens of thousands of experts of the 10,000 martial sect silently disappeared from the stone palace. Just as Shi Tiangang had expected, the result of the battle between the 6 factions quickly spread throughout the spiritual state. The spiritual state and heaven region were shocked. The sacrificial evil god dynasty was destroyed. The Xianyuan family and ancient Frost Island fled. The battle between the six top forces ended with Sky Emperor Palace's complete victory. This result was completely out of the expectations of all the forces of the spiritual state. All the forces were shocked by Sky Emperor Palace's ruthlessness, destroying a top force in one move. But no one knew that the person who had truly destroyed the sacrificial evil god dynasty was hiding quietly under the awe-inspiring name of Sky Emperor Palace. This was also the reason why Qin Yu had chosen to continue hiding in Sky Emperor Palace. It wasn't until Sky Emperor Palace and the other allied forces crazily seized the resources and territories of the sacrificial evil god dynasty. The major forces of the spiritual state finally reacted. Unfortunately, in front of the allied forces of Sky Emperor Palace, even the Xianyuan family and ancient Frost Island could only temporarily avoid them. Chapter 522. The situation of the three sects' raging resources was only broken by the neutral 10,000 martial sect. But at this time, the territory of the sacrificial evil god dynasty had already been occupied by the three sections. And after this war, with the heavenly imperial palace, the heavenly sun holy land, and the sage divine dynasty as the leaders, 4 super forces and more than 20 mid-level forces, an alliance was formed. This was called the Northwest Martial Artist Alliance by the spiritual state. However, the 3 leading forces did not announce a complete alliance to the outside world. Therefore, all kinds of rumors spread in the spiritual state. This situation also directly caused the forces in the eastern and southern regions of the spiritual state to become more active. Half a month later, in the spiritual state, northern region, heavenly imperial palace. Qin Yu, who was cultivating in seclusion in the palace, opened his eyes. AOD sent news. The dragon soul and the dragon god ancient seal also sent something. A talisman appeared in Qin Yu's hand. He crushed the talisman, and AOD's voice came. We will meet in the ancient barbarian martial world in 3 days. Qin Yu heard this and quickly found out. The ancient barbarian martial world was located in the sacrificial evil god dynasty. It was originally a subsidiary martial world of the 12 royal cities. It's finally here. Qin Yu's eyes flashed with a bright light. In the past half a month, he had cultivated under the dragon soul's 10-fold speed. Qin Yu's cultivation had already reached the peak of the second great emperor realm from the early stage. If the news of an emperor realm cultivator having such a cultivation speed spread out, it would probably shock countless people. However, it was still too slow for Qin Yu. Even if he had cultivated the emperor realm Dao art once in his previous life, it was still very difficult. Now that he had cultivated it again, it was still quite difficult. Therefore, finding the dragon race and refining the dragon blood was the right path for Qin Yu. Of course, there was another reason why Qin Yu was excited about AOD's appearance. As the plan to destroy the sacrificial evil god dynasty was deployed by Qin Yu, it gradually spread among the upper echelons of the Heavenly Emperor Palace. Now, the upper echelons of the Heavenly Emperor Palace had an obvious change of attitude towards Qin Yu. Sure, Tiangang and the others were fine, but the other Emperor Realm elders were extremely strange. Many people were talking about Qin Yu behind his back. The after effects that the Dragon Soul had predicted before this operation had now appeared. Qin Yu believed that Shi Tiangang and the others were already suspicious of him and had long suspected his identity. It was only because of the Immortal Emperor pills that he didn't reveal it. Therefore, in order to deal with any possible unfavorable situations, Qin Yu felt that he had to find the Dragon Clan as soon as possible. During this half a month, other than cultivating, Qin Yu had been cultivating. He had also used the resources he had plundered from the sacrificial evil god dynasty to refine countless pills. These spiritual pills were enough to support the purple thunder divine firmament dragon and the golden flame heavenly incinerating dragon's cultivation for a long time. The purple thunder divine firmament dragon had already entered seclusion. Once his seclusion ended and he reached his peak state, he would be able to use the lightning crossing immortal pill to completely transform into a dragon. The golden flame heaven incinerating dragon's cultivation had also improved tremendously. From rank 4 martial emperor, he had reached rank 8 martial emperor. Although the dragon clan required countless cultivation resources to break through to the next level. Correspondingly, if they had endless cultivation resources, the dragon clan's cultivation speed would far surpass that of humans. One must know that the dragon clan was definitely a peak existence among all the innate life forms. There is no need to mention their aptitude and other factors. One day later, in the heavenly imperial palace, in the residence of the descendants of the generals, is there news from the sacred region of the central province? A human figure rushed into an ancient palace in a hurry. This person was none other than the descendant of the Azure Ghost Battle General, Qing Jinzhong. There were 4 people gathered in the ancient palace. They were Qi Shiri, the descendant of the Scarlet Lightning Battle General, Gu Wuxing, the descendant of the Mad Demon Battle General, Qi Shuanghai, the descendant of the Heavenly Flames Battle General, and Mu Qingyun, the descendant of the Spiritual Wood Battle General. That's right. Qi Shiri nodded slightly with a somewhat serious expression. In the ancient martial star, Qi Shuanghai and Mu Qingyun also had serious expressions. Exactly what were they looking for in the sacred region of the central province? Seeing the serious expressions of Qi Shiri and the others, Qing Jinzhong had an ominous feeling in his heart. Immortal spirit herbs. Qi Shiri said one word at a time. They had long noticed that Shi Tiangang had secretly sent people to the sacred region of the central province. Furthermore, they had been secretly investigating the matter the entire time. Thanks to the war started by the sacrificial evil god dynasty, Shi Tiangang had recalled all the sovereigns he had sent out. When the war ended and Shi Tiangang sent them out again, they had followed the clues and investigated the matter. Immortal spirit herbs? Qing Jinzhong's eyes twitched violently with a shocked expression. Isn't that what our ancestors said back then? That's right. Now, we can be sure that they have found a way to reignite the bloodline of the 3 emperors. The immortal spirit herbs should be the most crucial divine medicine, Qi Shiri said solemnly. We must stop them from obtaining the immortal spirit herbs. Qing Jinzhong's expression also became extremely serious. The current heavenly imperial palace was still dominated by the descendants of the 3 emperors led by Shi Tiangang. However, the descendants of the generals had already obtained close to half of the control. In some areas, they had even surpassed the descendants of the 3 emperors. What they were waiting for now was for the bloodline of the 3 emperors to wither completely. At this time, they absolutely could not allow the bloodline of the 3 emperors to be reignited. They could no longer be trampled under the feet of the descendants of the 3 emperors like before. Instead of guarding against thieves for 1,000 days, why don't we capture the thieves and eliminate them once and for all? Qi Shiri's eyes were filled with sinister viciousness and intense greed. Capture the thieves? Eliminate the thieves once and for all? What do you want to do? Qing Jinzhong, Ancient Warrior Planet, Qi Shuanghai, and Mu Qingyun were all shocked. Why did AI Shiri's words sound as if he wanted to directly eliminate the core descendants of the 3 emperors? Qi Shiri said ruthlessly, "This risk is too great." Qing Jinzhong pondered for a moment and said, "Indeed, with our current foundation, we only have a 40% chance of winning if we fight with them." Ancient Warrior Planet also slowly shook his head. Not to mention other things, just the chaotic sky god array alone was in the hands of the descendants of the 3 emperors. Although they also had many trump cards, their chances of winning were still too small. If they fought and both sides suffered losses, there would be internal strife. With the current situation of the spiritual state, it would only attract a pack of vicious wolves that would devour the Sky Emperor Palace. This would not benefit them at all. They had endured for so many years because what they wanted was a complete Sky Emperor Palace. Have you already thought of a countermeasure? Qi Shuanghai looked at Mu Qingyun, who did not say anything, and asked Qi. Of course, I am confident that I can suppress Tiangang and the others. If the plan goes smoothly, then we will be able to silently and completely control the Sky Emperor Palace. Intense greed surged in Qi eyes. Some ambitions, once born, could not be erased. They would even grow bigger and bigger. Are you colluding with external forces? This thought suddenly appeared in Qing Jinzhong's mind, and he jumped in fright. If they wanted to silently suppress Tiangang and the others, no matter how well prepared they were, they would need double the number of peak sovereigns. Other than relying on external forces, Qing Jinzhong could not think of any other way to do it. Chapter 5:23. There are gains and losses. If we don't want to give anything, we will always be trampled under their feet. AI Shiri said in a deep voice. Qi Supreme Emperor is right. Anyone who wants to achieve great things will have to bear risks. As soon as AI Shiri's voice fell, a robust voice suddenly rang out. Who is it? Azurite Bell, Ancient Martial Star, Qi Shuanghai, and Mu Qingyun were all shocked and emitted terrifying Dao techniques. The cultivation of the person he was talking about was probably not any weaker than theirs. More importantly, that voice was definitely not from the Sky Emperor Palace. Under the gazes of Azurite Bell and the others, a person in a black robe slowly stepped out. As the black hood on the person's head was taken off, a majestic face was revealed. You are Thousand Martial Sects, Divine Master? Wan Wu Supreme Emperor. Azurite Bell and the others were in disbelief when they saw the black-robed person's true appearance. The person who appeared was actually the sect master of the Thousand Martial Sect, one of the top venerable emperors in the spiritual state, Wan Wu Supreme Emperor. Among the top venerable emperors in the spiritual state, there were two who were most likely to reach the divine level. One was Tiangang, and the other was Wan Wu Supreme Emperor. Azurite Bell and the others didn't expect that the force that AI Shiri joined forces with would be the Thousand Martial Sect. No wonder AI Shiri was so confident that he could suppress Tiangang and the others. What do you think of my previous proposal? The ambition and greed in AI Shiri's eyes expanded like a prairie fire. If we have Wan Wu Supreme Emperor's help, we can indeed easily suppress the descendants of the three emperors. But before Mu Qingyun finished speaking, he used a secret technique to transmit his voice. Forgive me for being blunt, Elder AI, but what's the difference between your action and inviting a wolf into the house? If Elder Mu is worried that Wan Wu Supreme Emperor will attack us after this, you don't have to. Mu Qingyun transmitted his voice using a secret technique, but AI Shiri spoke directly. Oh, then I'm curious. What is Wan Wu Supreme Emperor's purpose in helping us? Mu Qingyun's eyes flashed. He didn't transmit his voice, but asked directly. He absolutely didn't believe that the Thousand Martial Sect had no ulterior motives and would help them for free. For a major force like them, the starting point of everything. Even if Emperor 10,000 Martial had some sort of personal relationship with Qi Shi, he would definitely not act for free. It's simple. I'll help you deal with the descendants of the three sovereigns. When you take complete control of the Heavenly Imperial Palace, you have to help me deal with the Heavenly Sun Holy Land and the Saint Sage Divine Dynasty. Once the matter is settled, the northern region will be the territory of your sect. Wan Wudi said straightforwardly. Mu Qingyun, Azurite Bell, the ancient martial planet, and Qi Shuang looked at each other in shock. They understood what the 10,000 Martial Sect was plotting. They wanted to take advantage of the alliance between the Heavenly Sun Holy Land and the Sage Divine Dynasty to wipe out the two top forces. After the war between the six factions and the destruction of the sacrificial evil godly dynasty, the situation in the spiritual state had gradually turned into a stalemate in the northeast. The 10,000 Martial Sect, the Xianyuan family, and the ancient Cold Island were the leaders of the two prefectures. The two prefectures in the north and west were naturally the alliance of Heavenly Imperial Palace, Heavenly Sun Holy Land, and Saint Sage Divine Dynasty. It was obvious that the innumerable martial faction wanted to unify the spiritual state. Qing Jinzhong and his crew were even more worried. When the innumerable martial faction swept away the other forces in the spiritual state and unified the spiritual state, would they still tolerate their existence? Of course, if they chose to submit, they might survive. But what was the difference between that and the current situation? It might even be worse. I know what you're all worried about. In order to show our sincerity, I'm willing to work with you. To show our sincerity, Emperor 10,000 Martial Emperor has made a heart demon oath and is willing to plant the mad demon curse. In addition, more than half of the younger generation of the innumerable martial faction, including the descendants of Emperor 10,000 Martial Emperor, will stay with us in the future. Qi Shi glanced at Qing Jinzhong and his crew and spoke slowly. Heart demon oath? Mad demon curse. Hearing Qi Shi's words, Qing Jinzhong and his crew's expressions changed. For top emperors like them, the heart demon oath was not something they could make casually. It was especially so for Emperor 10,000 Martial Emperor, who could break through to the divine emperor level. If they were not careful, it would breed a heart demon and even cause chi deviation. As for the mad demon curse, it was the origin power of the former mad demon general, a supreme curse technique. Anyone who was cursed would die a violent death for no reason. In contrast, Emperor 10,000 Martial Emperor sent more than half of the younger generation of the innumerable martial faction as hostages, which was not so important. If that's the case, then we can give it a try. Qing Jinzhong and his crew looked at each other and communicated with each other. After a while, they finally made a decision. If they had such leverage on Emperor 10,000 Martial Emperor, they were relieved. Then, wish us success in advance. Emperor 10,000 Martial Emperor laughed. A conspiracy that could sweep the entire spiritual state was formed in this small stone palace. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. When the appointed day with AOD arrived, Qin Yu quietly left the imperial palace and came to the ancient barbarian martial world. The ancient barbarian martial world was now in the territory of the imperial palace, so Qin Yu directly teleported there. In the ancient barbarian martial world, Qin Yu broke through the void and arrived at the top of a towering mountain. There was already a figure on the mountain. It was AOD, who he had not seen for several months. After seeing AOD, Qin Yu was slightly surprised. AOD's breath was a little chaotic, as if he had suffered a serious injury. Long time no see. Sensing Qin Yu's arrival, AOD removed the restriction around him. What happened? Qin Yu asked directly. Of course, he was not worried about AOD, but about the tomb of the Dragon Emperor. Someone sneaked up on me. I'm afraid my trip to the tomb of the Dragon Emperor will be delayed. AOD did not hide anything and said directly, Then why did you ask me to come here today? Qin Yu raised his eyebrows. Apart from joining hands to go to the tomb of the Dragon Emperor, he and AOD were enemies. The person who sneaked up on me previously already knew the approximate location of the tomb of the Dragon Emperor. Of course, except for me, no one can summon AOD's tomb. However, it is very likely that the person who sneaked up on me has been lurking outside the tomb of the Dragon Emperor. Therefore, this is the restriction of the tomb of the Dragon Emperor. See if you can break it in the shortest time possible. As AOD spoke, he handed an ancient crystal to Qin Yu. Primordial Immortal Force Restriction? Qin Yu took the crystal. After sensing it for a while, he recognized it. Although the Primordial Immortal Force Restriction was extremely rare, it was not Qin Yu's first time seeing it. On the contrary, in his previous life, he had specially searched for and broken many of them. As for the reason, it was naturally because he hoped that one day he could break the Immortal Force Restriction deep inside the Immortal Treasure. If you want to enter the tomb of the Dragon Emperor, you have to break this Primordial Immortal Force Restriction. But the situation now is that if the person who sneaked up on me has been lurking outside the tomb of the Dragon Emperor, even if I use the secret technique of the Dragon Tribe, I can only delay them for 10 breaths of time. Therefore, you have to break the Primordial Immortal Force Restriction within 10 breaths of time. so we can get rid of them. AOD explained. Chapter 5:24. I need some time, Chinyu said after sensing with his mind. Given enough time, he could definitely figure out a way to break the seal within 10 breaths. Just in time. I also need some time to prepare. AOD said, Did you just say that the people who ambushed you were them? Is there more than one person? Chinyu asked when he saw AOD was about to leave. 3 peak sovereigns. AOD's eyes flashed with a sinister light. If that wasn't the case, he wouldn't have been ambushed by the other party. Could the people who ambushed you be the ancient evil nether dragon who controlled the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon in the immortal Phoenix Valley? Chinyu's eyes flashed. Chinyu was quite interested in the ancient evil nether dragon. If the ancient evil nether dragon came to the heavenly domain, it would be exactly what he wanted. It's not just the ancient evil nether dragon. The other 2 sovereigns are also transformed dragons. Hearing that, AOD took a glance at Chinyu and said without changing his expression, 3 of the dragon clan? The dragon soul in the ancient dragon seal was so excited that its eyes were shining. Chinyu's heart also trembled. He had been searching for dragons in the heavenly domain, but to no avail. Who would have thought that AOD would be able to provide him with information about 3 metamorphosed dragons? Including AOD, there were 4 transformed dragons in total. It seemed that he had to go to the extraterritorial region after he recovered his cultivation. If he wanted to create the Eternal Dragon Nation, he had to keep up with the number of dragons. After chatting for a while, Chinyu flew away. Ba. AOD watched Chinyu disappear with a sinister light in his eyes. Since those guys had expelled him and made Ba their master, they wanted to get rid of him completely. Then they couldn't blame him for being ruthless and recruiting a peerless, ruthless person for them. If Chinyu was really the reincarnation of the dragon god, it would be a disaster for the extraterritorial dragon tribe. Even the old dragon who had reached the divine, heavenly sovereign realm might be in trouble. Even if Chinyu was not the dragon god Emperor Samsara. With Chinyu's dragon god sovereign ability, it was enough to give the extraterritorial dragons a headache. Roar! Chinyu, who was flying toward the sky Emperor Palace, suddenly sensed the purple thunder divine firmament dragon's deafening roar. The dragon's soul also sensed this and immediately appeared, opening the origin chaotic dragon world. Rumble. The moment the Chaos Dragon realm opened, a torrent of purple lightning erupted. In an instant, the area within a radius of 1,000 miles was covered by purple lightning. An incomparably huge dragon shadow was rolling in the purple lightning sea. Above the 9 heavens, there was an incomparably vast divine might of thunder. Although the purple lightning divine firmament dragon's origin ability was the apocalyptic divine lightning, the divine firmament dragon's origin ability was the apocalyptic divine lightning. However, in front of the divine might of lightning that was being emitted, they still felt frightened. The transformation lightning tribulation of a dragon clan could be said to be a tribulation of life and death. In the history of the sky region, countless dragons had died under the shape-shifting lightning tribulation. Back then, the purple thunder divine firmament dragon was lucky enough to be saved by fairy Xiulan, who went to find Chinyu. His body and soul would have been destroyed by the shape-shifting lightning tribulation. Swoosh! Swoosh! Sensing the monstrous fluctuations of the lightning tribulation, Chinyu looked at it and waved his left hand. Array flags immediately flew into the sky and merged into the void within a radius of 1,000 miles. In an instant, the void covered by the array flags was covered by the ancient array formed by the array flags. Although the terrifying lightning tribulation fluctuations could not be completely concealed, it was not as frightening as before. Crack! There was a deafening explosion of thunder, and a faint black lightning struck down from the void. The sky was like a piece of cloth torn by a sharp blade, and an immeasurably deep spatial crack appeared. With the sound of flesh and blood exploding, a huge bloody hole appeared on the purple thunder divine firmament dragon's body. Dragon scales splattered everywhere, and purple dragon blood poured out of the void as if it was raining blood. Crack! Crack! In the next moment, the black thunderbolts continued to bombard the area like a torrential downpour. In an instant, the purple thunder divine firmament dragon's sea of purple lightning was annihilated by the black lightning. The power of the two lightning was on a completely different level. In other words, the purple thunder divine firmament dragon's apocalyptic sacred lightning was completely restrained by the black lightning tribulation. After all, it was a lightning tribulation that specifically targeted the dragon race. It had an innate suppressive effect on the dragon race. Yu looked at the purple lightning falling from the sky and did not immediately give the purple thunder divine firmament dragon a lightning-crossing immortal pill. If the dragon race wanted to shapeshift, they had to absorb the power of the lightning tribulation. Therefore, Yu would only help the purple thunder divine firmament dragon when it reached its limit and could not hold on. It's the Taigu immortal lightning tribulation. In the divine dragon ancient seal, the dragon soul's eyes flashed with shock. The shape-shifting lightning tribulation of the dragon race was not uniform. The stronger the dragon race was, the stronger the lightning tribulation would be. This also meant that the dragon race had greater potential. Judging from the primordial immortal lightning tribulation, the purple thunder divine firmament dragon had the potential to become an immortal beast. It was no wonder that AOD did not hesitate to come from the outland to subdue the purple thunder divine firmament dragon. Crackle. As time passed, the black lightning falling from the sky became more and more terrifying, be it in terms of quantity or power. If it was a violent storm before, it was now a tornado. The land within 1,000 miles was completely destroyed and turned into nothingness. The purple thunder divine firmament dragon had also completely disappeared under the black lightning. Even the dragon's roar had disappeared. If Yu could not sense the purple thunder divine firmament dragon's aura, he would have thought that its soul had completely dissipated. AOD is here. Many cultivators in the surroundings have been attracted over. When Yu was fully focused on the purple thunder divine firmament dragon situation, the dragon's soul sensed something. Don't worry about them. Yu's expression did not change at all. Even he was not confident that he could withstand the power of the shape-shifting lightning tribulation of the purple thunder divine firmament dragon. If the other Emperor Realm Masters did not know what was good for them and barged in, they would be severely injured even if they did not die. Lightning tribulation. Immortal pill. After enduring for more than 2 hours under the destructive power of the lightning, the purple thunder divine firmament dragon's weak consciousness finally appeared in Yu's mind. Swoosh! Yu, who was already prepared, did not hesitate at all. He immediately flicked his finger. A jade box surrounded by mysterious lightning runes shot out. With a bang, the lightning rune jade box exploded, and a 7-colored lightning immortal pill that was about 10 feet in size appeared. After a flash in the void, the 7-colored lightning immortal pill immediately entered the purple thunder divine firmament dragon's body. Immediately, the 7-colored lightning, which was as dense as a rainbow, covered the purple thunder divine firmament dragon, which was badly mutilated and had a weak aura. The primordial immortal lightning tribulation, which had caused devastating damage to the purple thunder divine firmament dragon, was immediately neutralized by the 7-colored lightning. Only a trace of pure black lightning mist entered the purple thunder divine firmament dragon's body. That was the origin source of the primordial immortal lightning tribulation. If the purple thunder divine firmament dragon wanted to shape-shift and transcend the tribulation, it had to absorb the origin energy of the primordial immortal lightning tribulation. As the power of the lightning tribulation immortal pill enveloped the purple thunder divine firmament dragon, huge bloody holes appeared on its body. The purple thunder divine firmament dragon's body immediately recovered at an astonishing speed. Not long after, the purple thunder divine firmament dragon recovered to its original state. Not only that, But the purple thunder divine firmament dragon's body was also several times stronger than before. The newly grown purple lightning dragon scales also looked like steel that had been tempered thousands of times, shining with divine light. The purple thunder divine firmament dragon's aura rose at an astonishing speed. Chapter 525. Roar. When the purple thunder divine dragon's aura reached its limit, it suddenly let out a loud dragon roar. In the next moment, a torrent of purple lightning appeared. The purple torrent was like an endless, void black hole, swallowing up all the Taigu immortal lightning tribulation. Crack! Crack! The purple thunder divine dragon emitted rich and dazzling purple lightning. Then, the sound of bones colliding could be heard. The purple thunder divine dragon quickly shrank. The smaller its body, the more dazzling the purple lightning around it became. In the end, it became a purple lightning ball. The Taigu immortal lightning tribulation passed so easily. In the void hundreds of miles away from Chinyu, AOD looked at the dissipating Taigu immortal lightning tribulation with a strange light in his eyes. His transformation tribulation was the Taigu immortal lightning tribulation. At that time, he had paid a huge price to pass the tribulation successfully. After passing the tribulation, it took a few years to gradually recover its vitality, and only then did it fully transform. However, the purple thunder divine dragon not only passed the tribulation, but also took advantage of the tribulation's power to transform. This naturally made AOD extremely surprised. He didn't believe that Chinyu didn't help it pass the tribulation so easily. Now, AOD finally understood. Why did the purple thunder divine dragon choose to submit to Chinyu, who was only at the martial emperor realm? Crack! The purple lightning ball became more and more condensed. When it was only a few feet wide, a huge crack appeared on it. Then, more and more cracks appeared, covering the entire lightning ball. After a loud explosion, the purple lightning ball suddenly exploded. A burly figure appeared. It was the purple thunder divine dragon after its transformation. The purple thunder divine dragon had a strong body and a rough face. He wore a purple battle robe that was condensed from lightning, and he held a purple lightning spear in his hand. A mighty dragon's might radiated from him. I finally succeeded. Chinyu looked at the transformed purple thunder divine dragon with a smile on his face. After passing the transformation tribulation, he only needed to use resources to improve his cultivation in the future. There was finally a real emperor dragon in Eternal Dragon. My king, the purple thunder divine firmament dragon, strode over and knelt on one knee before Chinyu with a respectful expression. What's your real name? Chinyu asked with a smile. Every dragon, when born, would have the name of the origin that was born with the origin ability. Just like how AOD, AO Ba, AO Geo, and the others all had their own names. However, for the human race, they would usually call the dragons by their names and would rarely ask for their real names. However, things were different when it came to Chinyu. In the future, he would subdue more and more dragons, and dragons of the same race would appear. Naturally, you would need to know the true names of the dragons. Lei Kuang, the purple thunder divine firmament dragon, stood up and said respectfully, "There are quite a few people coming. Let's go." Chinyu nodded and put Lei Kuang into the origin dragon world before disappearing into the void. Half an hour later, Chinyu, who was flying towards the heavenly imperial palace after taking a big detour away from the thunder tribulation area, suddenly exclaimed softly. Immediately after, Chinyu immediately restrained his aura and disappeared into the void. Why are there so many Emperor Realm Masters? Did the heavenly imperial palace and the three sects do something again? The dragon soul looked at the 700 or so Emperor Realm Masters in the distance, and a glint flashed in its eyes. No top force in the spirit state could produce so many Emperor Realm Masters. They were definitely allied forces. No, they're not from the heavenly imperial palace and the three sects. Chinyu focused his eyes and took a look. He was able to tell. Those Emperor Realm Masters were not from the Heavenly Imperial Palace, Heavenly Sun Holy Land, or Saint Divine Dynasty. They were not even from Xianyuan family or ancient Cold Island. Qin Yu had seen the cultivators of the Six Sects during the Six Sect War some time ago. He knew clearly about the cultivation inheritance they each cultivated. This also caused Qin Yu to be extremely astonished. Other than these few great forces in the spirit state, there should be no other force that could produce so many Emperor Realm Masters. Even the 10,000 Martial Sect, which claimed to be the strongest of the 7 great forces, could not have so many Emperor Realm Masters. Could it be that an external force intervened in the spirit state situation? That direction. Are they heading towards the Heavenly Imperial Palace? Qin Yu's eyes flashed with a look of contemplation. The bird that sticks out gets shot. During this period, the Heavenly Imperial Palace was indeed in the limelight. First, it was the Six Sects that destroyed the sacrificial evil god dynasty. Then, it was rumored that they took the lead and formed the Northwest Martial Artist Alliance. This also caused the Heavenly Imperial Palace's every move to be seen by countless forces. It was very likely that the Heavenly Imperial Palace was targeted by the other powerful forces of the 9 continents of the Heaven Domain. Of course, this so-called 9 continents of the Heaven Domain were most likely the 2 continents of the human race. Next was the Northwest Spirit State of the monster race. As for the Central Continent, it was unlikely that they would take a fancy to the Spirit State. The Barren State and the Divine Land had never intervened in the affairs of other continents. Thinking of this, the spiritual array disc in Qin Yu's hand trembled slightly, and a mysterious ancient incantation burned out. Although he did not know what had happened, it was better to inform the Heavenly Imperial Palace first and make preparations. After the ancient incantation burned, a teleportation array appeared in Qin Yu's spiritual array disc and disappeared in an instant. Just in case, Qin Yu left a teleportation array inside and outside the Heavenly Imperial Palace at any time. The reason why he was in a hurry before was because he did not want the teleportation array to be discovered by the Heavenly Imperial Palace. At the same time, in the Heavenly Imperial Palace, in the Sacred Palace, Shi Tiangang, Shi Tianyun, Sun Guxing, Sun Jiuxiao, Sun Yunlang, and the other core Emperor Realm Masters were gathered together. The descendants of the 12 battle generals, Ai Shiri, Qin Jinzhong, and the other core Emperor Realm Masters were also gathered. Elder Qi, why did you summon us in such a hurry? Did something big happen? Looking at the grave expressions of the descendants of the battle generals, Shi Tiangang also became a little serious. All the top Emperor Realm Masters were gathered. Could it be that another major force had invaded? But why did they not receive any news? Palace Master, please look at this. Ai Shiri's expression was extremely grave as he took out a spiritual rune crystal. This is... Shi Tiangang took a look and broke the seal, revealing a scene. It can't be. Seeing the scene, Shi Tiangang and the other descendants of the 3 battle generals were shocked. Did the 10,000 Martial Sect and the Heavenly Sun Sacred Land secretly form an alliance? The scene was of the 10,000 Martial Sovereign, the Heavenly Sun Sacred Master, and the high-level emperors from both sides talking and laughing. Shi Tiangong's brows furrowed tightly. With his eyesight, he could naturally see that the scene on the spiritual rune crystal was not an illusion. The Heavenly Sun's Sacred Land was one of the 3 strongest forces in the Northwest Martial Arts Alliance. Meeting the Divine Master of the 10,000 Martial Sect at this time naturally made their imagination run wild. If the Heavenly Sun's Sacred Land really formed an alliance with the 10,000 Martial Sect, it would definitely be bad news for the Heavenly Imperial Palace. This is no small matter. We must test the Heavenly Sun Sacred Land's attitude before making a decision. Sun Yunlang said with a grave expression, if this matter was not handled well, it would turn their originally favorable situation upside down. Elder Qi, how did you get this information? Sun Jiuxiao asked Ai Shiri directly after pondering for a moment. He had always been in charge of the intelligence of the Heavenly Imperial Palace. The fact that the descendants of the battle generals knew about this information in advance made Sun Jiuxiao feel that something was wrong. Chapter 526. Shi Tiangang and the others also turned to look at Qi Shi. Within the heavenly imperial palace, the situation between the descendants of the three emperors and the generals had always been quite subtle. At the critical moment, they would work together to fight against the external enemies. But over the years, the gap between the two sides had grown bigger and bigger, and they were wary of each other. Do you still remember that we had a fierce conflict with the Heavenly Sun Holy Land more than 20 years ago? At that time, I sent someone to hide in the Heavenly Sun Holy Land just in case. Originally, because of the recent alliance, I was going to call him back to avoid any misunderstandings. But who would have thought that the spy would send such a secret message just now? And after the secret message was sent, he was killed by the Heavenly Sun Holy Land and the 10,000 Martial Emperor. Qi Shi said solemnly, with a trace of anger and murderous intent in his voice. So the news is true. The Heavenly Sun Holy Land and the 10,000 Martial sect must be up to something. Are they targeting us? It's not impossible. After all, more than half of the Northern Territory has fallen into our hands. It's inevitable that they will covet it. Among the descendants of the three emperors, there were many high-level emperors, and they were all discussing with a solemn atmosphere. Wong. Just as Shi Tiangang was deep in thought, the jade pendant at his waist trembled slightly. Then, an ancient rune appeared on the jade pendant. Shen Feng's urgent secret order? Seeing this, Shi Tiangang immediately merged the power of his emperor's spirit into the ancient rune. In the next moment, Shi Tiangang's face changed. He stood up abruptly and immediately took out an ancient token. As the runes on the ancient token trembled, the chaotic Heaven Divine array immediately activated its highest level of defense. Palace Master, what's wrong? Seeing this, the people of the Heavenly Imperial Palace all looked at Shi Tiangang, not knowing what had happened. Shen Feng sent a secret message. There are at least 700 Emperor Realm Masters rushing towards us. Shi Tiangang said slowly, his voice extremely solemn. 700 Emperor Realm Masters. Shi Tiangang's words were like a sudden clap of thunder, causing the gathered core emperors of the Heavenly Imperial Palace to pale in disbelief. 700 Emperor Realm Masters. With such a foundation, at least 3 top forces had formed an alliance. Besides, the Heavenly Sun Holy Land and the 10,000 Martial sect, which other top force had formed an alliance to deal with them. The expressions of AI Shi and the other descendants of war generals changed. They looked at each other in shock. They had just started planning, and the 10,000 Martial sect and the others had already been exposed. Palace Master, what do we do now? Where's Shen Feng now? Two voices rang out at the same time. It was a 3 emperors high-level Emperor Realm Venerable and Sun Gushing. However, their focus was completely different. The high-level Emperor Realm Master was concerned about how to deal with the current situation. As for Sun Gushing, he was worried for Qin Yu's safety. Out of the 4 great godly herbs, only the immortal spirit grass was missing. Now, the news of the immortal spirit grass appearance was very likely to be true. At this time, as long as they could get through this crisis and obtain the immortal spiritual herbs, they would be able to concoct the immortal Emperor pills. Hence, even if the safety of the Emperor Palace was important, Qin Yu couldn't be lost. Shen Feng has returned. Now, we have to act according to the most serious situation. Open the ancestral realm first. Just as Shi Tiangang was giving orders to arrange everything and prepare to deal with the great enemy that was about to arrive, his voice suddenly stopped. His gaze was fixed on the divine incantation that had appeared at some point above the sacred hall. Those divine incantations were ancient and mysterious. They were like strange flowers blooming, giving off a demonic feeling. However, what shocked Shi Tiangang was that, even with his cultivation, he didn't notice when those ancient divine incantations had appeared. Rumble. Almost at this instant, a wave of destructive power suddenly attacked Shi Tiangang and the others. Layers of explosions occurred in the void, and the sacred hall shook violently. If it weren't for the barrier formed by those ancient divine incantations, the sacred hall would have been completely destroyed. The ones who attacked were the 12 Emperor Realm venerable generals led by Qi Shi. Caught off guard, more than 10 Emperor Realm venerable generals among the descendants of the three emperors were killed, and dozens more were seriously injured. Fortunately, Shi Tiangang and the other top Emperor Realm venerable generals reacted quickly and were not injured. While defending, they also protected the other Emperor Realm venerable generals from the three emperors. After the sneak attack, Qi Shi and the other Emperor Realm venerable generals' descendants didn't attack again. They just stared at Shi Tiangang and the others. Qi Shi, what are you doing? A seriously injured high-level Emperor Realm venerable roared at Qi Shi and the others. However, the gazes of Qi Shi and the others were cold and gloomy. Cold smiles filled with killing intent appeared on their faces. It seems that the one who colluded with the 10,000 martial sect is not the heavenly sun holy land, but you. Shi Tiangang looked deeply at Qi Shi and the others. If he still didn't understand by now, he would have lived in vain. Palace Master is indeed intelligent. Unfortunately, it's too late to understand now. Qi Shi sneered coldly. According to the plan, they used the possibility of the Heavenly Sun Holy Land and the 10,000 martial sect as an excuse to gather Shi Tiangang and the other higher-ups of the three emperors. The original plan was quite smooth, but the 10,000 martial sect's actions were detected by Qin Yu, so they had to act in advance. Why are you doing this? Shi Tiangang glanced at Qi Shi and the other Emperor Realm venerable general's descendants and asked slowly, why? The reason is simple. The weak are prey to the strong, and the strong are respected. We are no weaker than you. Why should we let you step on our heads? The greed and fanaticism in Qi Shi's eyes was difficult to hide. What good do you think you will have in the future by inviting the wolf into the house? Shi Tiangong's expression and tone gradually calmed down. But those who knew him knew that Shi Tiangang was now in a state of complete fury. Even when the sacrificial evil god court joined forces with foreign enemies to invade, Shi Tiangang had never been so furious. Sometimes, being betrayed by one's own people was more chilling than being invaded by foreign enemies. In these years, the gap between the descendants of the three emperors and the Emperor Realm venerable general's descendants had been growing. But in Shi Tiangong's heart, the descendants of the Emperor Realm venerable generals were still people of the heavenly imperial palace. Even if they reignited the bloodline of the three emperors, it would only stabilize the position of the descendants of the three emperors. They would not kill the descendants of the Emperor Realm venerable generals. But they did not expect that the descendants of the Emperor Realm venerable generals would collude with foreign forces in order to seize power. Moreover, the force they colluded with was the 10,000 martial sect. This was no different from inviting the wolf into the house. Even if they joined forces, it would be difficult to resist the 10,000 martial sect. Not to mention the power of the descendants of the Emperor Realm venerable generals alone. One could imagine that the heavenly imperial palace would definitely be unable to escape the fate of being annexed by the 10,000 martial sect. Thinking that the inheritance of the heavenly imperial palace from ancient times would be ruined by their hands. The killing intent in Shi Tiangong's heart towards Qi Shi and the others became more and more intense. He wanted to grind their bones and scatter their ashes. Palace Master, at this time, you should be worried about your own fate. As for us, we naturally have our own plans. You don't need to worry about it. Qi Shi smiled eerily. Although they did not manage to sneak attack Shi Tiangang and the others, they trapped them here. Their plan was equivalent to success. Chapter 5:27. You can't be so naive as to think that your scheme will succeed by trapping us here, right? Shi Tiangong's voice was still extremely calm, even indifferent. Sun Guxing, Shi Tianyun, and the others were filled with killing intent. They were waiting for Shi Tiangong's order to kill them immediately. Haha, you don't know yet, right? The moment the barrier of the sacred palace appeared, all the descendants of the three emperors outside would fall into our control. If you don't want your bloodline to be completely cut off, I suggest that you don't make any moves. AI Shiri's smile became even more complacent. The scheme that he had prepared for so many years was finally going to succeed. This made him unable to suppress his excitement. You, Sun Gushing, and the other descendants of the three emperors changed their expressions greatly. They were anxious because they were worried about the other clansmen outside. Although they were trapped here, their lives weren't in danger. On the contrary, the clansmen outside didn't know anything about the situation here. AI Shiri and the others had been scheming for a long time. They were afraid that they had really fallen into the hands of AI Shiri and the others. AI Shiri, do you really think that we didn't notice your ambition at all? Only sure, Tiangong's expression didn't change. So what if you noticed? It's too late now. AI Shiri was very unhappy that he didn't see the panic on Shi Tiangong's face. He snorted coldly. Since you've already noticed, then you'll naturally be prepared. A smile appeared on Shi Tiangong's face. Sun Gushing and the others couldn't help but look at Shi Tiangang. They didn't know what Shi Tiangang had secretly prepared. However, looking at Shi Tiangong's appearance, it seemed that he didn't need to worry about the safety of the clansmen outside. At this time, you can only talk big. AI Shiri glanced at the confused Sun Gushing and the others, and the sneer on his face became even more obvious. It was normal for Shi Tiangang to hide it from them, but he didn't believe that he would hide it from Sun Gushing and the other descendants of the three emperors. Evidently, Shi Tiangang was merely bluffing right now. However, this was exactly what he wanted, because when the 10,000 martial sect's army arrived, it would be easy to suppress Shi Tiangang and the others. Bluff? See if you can contact your clansmen outside. Then you'll know if I'm bluffing. The smile on Shi Tiangong's face became increasingly relaxed. AI Shi re-narrowed his eyes, his gloomy gaze flickering. Azurite Bell, Gu Wuxing, Qi Shuanghai, and the others looked at each other calmly. Mu Qingyun immediately used a secret technique to contact the Emperor Realm Master outside the temple. A moment later, the expression of Mu Qingyun, who was using a secret technique, changed. What happened? AI Shiri noticed the change in Mu Qingyun's expression and his heart sank. Green Golden Bell and the others communicated with each other using a secret technique. All the clansmen outside, including the Emperor Realm Elders, can't be contacted. Mu Qingyun's expression was extremely ugly. The barrier around the temple was something they had carefully laid down. It was able to prevent Shi Tiangang and the other descendants of the three sovereigns from sending out any news. However, they possessed the corresponding secret techniques, which allowed them to enter and exit, as well as use secret techniques to sense the outside world. Once the 10,000 martial sect's army arrived, they would be able to coordinate with the outside and forcefully suppress Shi Tiangang and the others. Otherwise, it would be meaningless for them to trap themselves here. Now, although the secret technique he used was transmitted, it was like throwing a stone into the sea. None of the clansmen in the outside world responded. It was obvious that something big had happened. The other Emperor Realm Masters also used their secret techniques to sense the outside world. The more they sensed, the more flustered they became. In order to prevent Shi Tiangang and the others from noticing their plan, their families and confidants weren't protected in advance. Now that they couldn't sense them and couldn't use their secret techniques to communicate, they were naturally flustered and had a bad premonition. What did you do? The complacent sneer on AI Shiri's face completely disappeared as he stared at Shi Tiangang sinisterly. Didn't I say just now? I just made some preparations. By the way, you just said that in order to prevent the bloodline from being severed, you advised us not to move recklessly, right? Now, I will also give you a suggestion. As Shi Tiangang spoke, the smile on his face turned cold. If you don't want your bloodline to be severed and your clansmen to die, immediately disperse the barrier around the temple. When Shi Tiangang's words came out, the expressions of the descendants changed again. The descendants of the three sovereigns relaxed a lot. The initiative of both sides immediately changed. Originally, AI Shiri and the others planned to use the three sovereigns as bargaining chips to threaten Shur Tiangang and the others. However, they didn't expect Shur Tiangang to control their clansmen, putting them in a difficult position. Elder Qi, something must have happened outside. Why don't you send me out? The Azure Gold Bell secretly transmitted its voice to AI Shiri. No, this is very likely a scheme. AI Shiri directly interrupted the Azure Gold Bell's transmission. They had trapped Shur Tiangang and the others with great difficulty. How could they rashly open the barrier just because they weren't sure if Shur Tiangang's words were true or false? If they let Shur Tiangang and the others escape, then all their previous efforts would be wasted. Don't make me say the same thing again. Now, open the barrier immediately. Shur Tiangong's ice-cold voice sounded as if he was issuing a final warning. Do you think you can scare me with just a few words? We have made thorough preparations in the outside world. No matter what preparations you made, it is impossible for you to catch all of us in one go. AI Shiri's eyes twitched. After his face twitched, he spoke sinisterly. If you don't believe me, then there is nothing I can do. However, that is a secret technique left behind by the three emperors. It is so powerful that even I can't resist it, nor can I control it completely. After a long time, I'm afraid that you won't even be able to collect the corpses of your clansmen. Shur Tiangang's fearless look made the descendants of the generals even more restless. If the bloodline of the 12 generals was cut off, then what was the use even if they succeeded in seizing the throne? Not good. While AI Shiri and the others couldn't make up their minds, the faces of the Emperor Realm descendants of the generals changed drastically. AI Shiri and the others looked over and saw that the Emperor Realm Masters all took out a jade pendant. A crack appeared on the jade pendant. AI Shiri and the others' faces changed. They could tell that those jade pendants were blood source jades. Now that the jade pendants had cracked, it meant that several descendants of the generals had died. What happened? Shur Tiangang's eyes flickered. He was a little surprised. Although he had set up a backup plan, it was impossible for him to kill all the descendants of battle generals. Now that the descendants of the generals had died, it was too much of a coincidence. Of course, this coincidence was a good thing for them. It would become the fatal straw that crushed the descendants of the generals. However, at this time, who would kill the 12 war generals? In the outside world, there were no more powerful emperors among the descendants of the three emperors. Suddenly, a figure suddenly appeared in Shur Tiangong's mind. Shun Feng. Chapter 528. Elder Qi, let's open the barrier first. Anyway, the people of 10,000 Martial Sect should be here already. Even if we open the barrier now, the result won't change. At this time, many descendants of great generals had already sent messages to Qi Shi. If what Shur Tiangang said was true, the descendants of their great generals would all be wiped out. If that was the case, their plan would be meaningless. This senior has already solved the problem that everyone is worried about, so there's no need to worry. Just as Qi Shi was about to give in, a chuckle suddenly came from a corner of the temple. This voice, Shur Tiangang and the others heard this, and their faces changed as they looked over. A figure appeared in the corner of the temple. It was the Holy Master of 10,000 Martial Sect, Supreme Martial Emperor. Rewind time a little, Heavenly Emperor Palace, in the glorious palace. Wang. Qin Yu, who had just teleported back and was about to find Shur Tiangang. He immediately felt a vast divine pressure emanating from the chaotic sky divine array that enveloped the Heavenly Emperor Palace. The divine pressure was so strong that it directly suppressed the space of the entire Heavenly Emperor Palace. It was as if even the air had been completely sucked out at this moment. The people in the Heavenly Emperor Palace, from weak to strong, were all suppressed in place under the terrifying divine pressure, unable to move at all. In an instant, the Heavenly Emperor Palace became dead silent, as if time had stopped. What's going on? Qin Yu, who was surrounded by space force and broke free from the divine pressure that suppressed the space, frowned slightly. There was no doubt that the vast divine pressure was emitted by the chaotic sky divine array. Even Qin, you couldn't control the chaotic sky divine array to achieve that kind of divine pressure. This must be the extraordinary secret technique of the chaotic sky divine array that Shi Tiangang and the other descendants of the three emperors had mastered. But the problem was that he had already sent back a message using the secret technique. Shi Tiangang and the others should have received the news by now. But why didn't any of the core high-level emperors appear? Instead, all the people of the Heavenly Emperor Palace were suppressed. As Qin Yu pondered, he began to walk toward the sacred palace. Once something big happened in the Heavenly Emperor Palace, everyone would gather in the temple to discuss it. But just as he passed through two palaces, Qin Yu's eyes suddenly narrowed. In front of them, 8 Emperor Realm Elders were desperately resisting the vast divine pressure. In front of such a terrifying divine pressure, even Emperor Realm Masters like them could only struggle, unable to completely escape. But what surprised Qin Yu was that beside the 8 Emperor Realm Elders were Sun Shiyu, Shi Jingtian, and the other younger generation descendants of the 3 emperors. Looking at the state of Sun Shiyu and the others, before they were suppressed by the pressure, they were all shocked. Obviously, he had been imprisoned by the 8 Emperor Realm Elders, and his face was filled with fear and anger. It can't be. Seeing this scene, a thought flashed through Qin Yu's mind, and his gaze fell on the 8 Emperor Realm Masters. After sensing a little, Qin Yu's guess was confirmed. The 8 venerable sovereigns all had the blood of descendants of battle generals running through their veins. Obviously, these 8 Emperor Realm Masters were all descendants of the 12 war generals. At this time, the civil war between the descendants of the 3 sovereigns and the 12 war generals broke out. Or could it be that the 700 Emperor Realm Masters coming towards the Emperor Palace were related to the descendants of the 12 war generals? Thinking about it was one thing, but Qin Yu's movements were not slow at all. His figure flickered, and he directly appeared in front of the 8 Emperor Realm Elders. The 8 of them were all 5th grade Emperor Realm Masters. With Qin Yu's current means, and under such circumstances, he was able to easily suppress them. With ease, Qin Yu directly suppressed them. After a little soul searching and refining, Qin Yu's guess was confirmed. The descendants of the 12 war generals were indeed preparing to rebel. Shi Tiangang and the others were already trapped in the temple. According to the original plan, what they were supposed to do was to capture all the descendants of the 3 emperors as bargaining chips. But they did not expect that such an unforeseen event would occur in the chaotic sky god array during the operation. Under such a vast divine pressure, it was extremely difficult for them to resist, and it was impossible for them to complete the plan of imprisoning all the descendants of the 3 emperors. Xiao. While Qin Yu was soul searching and refining, beams of divine light descended from the sky within the chaotic sky god array. Ancient and mysterious spirit runes spread out from those divine lights, intertwining with each other. Whether it was those divine lights or ancient spirit runes, they were not physical. They were like the moon in the water, and even ripples would occasionally appear. But after those divine lights and spirit runes spread out, the entire space of the Emperor Palace froze. That's right, it froze. Qin Yu was able to clearly sense that the entire void of the Heavenly Imperial Palace seemed to be about to be imprisoned. The people in the Emperor Palace seemed to be teleported to another space-time. Qin Yu thought for a moment and released a burst of space-time force. Sun Shiyu, Shi Jingtian, and the other juniors were immediately taken into the 3 layers of universe rings. Qin Yu still did not know whether Shi Tiangang and the others were the ones controlling the chaotic sky god array. So, Qin Yu did not let Sun Shiyu and the others be imprisoned in that space. Swish, swish, swish. After Qin Yu took Sun Shiyu and the others, those divine lights descending from the sky suddenly retracted. Those ancient spirit runes that were intertwined with the divine lights also flew up. Along with them, the people in the Emperor Palace were all brought up into the sky by the spirit runes. The Emperor Palace actually had such a hidden technique. Seeing the densely packed people being brought into the chaotic sky god array, The dragon soul's eyes flashed with shock. Among those people, there were more than 100 Emperor Realm masters, although their cultivation was below the 6th or 7th grade Emperor Realm. However, to be able to confine so many sovereigns in an instant was already shocking enough. Imprisoned, just as Qin Yu was thinking about whether to follow those divine lights and spirit runes and rush into the chaotic sky god array to find out what was going on, a low roar of extraordinary power suddenly exploded in the void of the Sky Emperor Palace. Then, a vast and unparalleled Tao technique power crossed the void. More than half of the divine lights and spirit runes that had entered the chaotic sky god array were directly suppressed in the void. Naturally, those from the Emperor Palace who had not had time to enter the chaotic sky god array were also sealed in midair, unable to move. Top Emperor Realm Master. The moment the roar appeared, Qin Yu instantly noticed it and immediately withdrew his aura and hid in the void. While hiding, Qin Yu also looked at the person who appeared in midair above the Emperor Palace. That's the 10,000 Martial Sect's Holy Master. After taking a look, Qin Yu immediately recognized him. This caused Qin Yu to be rather bewildered. Although he had just soul-searched and refined those 8 people, he did not obtain any confidential information. He did not know much about the overall plan of the descendants of the generals. However, now that the sect master of the 10,000 Martial Sect had appeared here, many doubts in Qin Yu's heart gradually became clear. If there was no internal support, the 10,000 Martial Sect's Holy Master would never have been able to sneak into the Emperor Palace silently. So, the only possibility was that the 12 generals and the 10,000 Martial Sect had joined forces. Looking at the 10,000 Martial Emperor, who was constantly using secret techniques to completely seal those divine lights and spirit runes in the void, Qin Yu did not appear. He wanted to see what kind of plan 10,000 Martial Emperor and the descendants of the generals had. Chapter 529. After using the secret technique to seal it, Wan Wudi looked at the chaotic sky divine array, as if he wanted to break it. After all, the entire space of the heavenly imperial palace was sealed by the chaotic sky divine array, and even the teleportation formation could not be used. Wan Wudi had been brought in advance. But when he was still deploying the teleportation formation, Shi Tiangang immediately activated the divine array and sealed the entire heavenly imperial palace. This also caused the 10,000 Martial Sect army that was about to arrive to be unable to come in. Unfortunately, the chaotic sky divine array that Shi Tiangang had turned into a defense was like a huge turtle shell. Even if it was destroyed from the inside, it could not be destroyed. In other words, there was no way to start. It seems that I can only use divine power to suppress it. After looking around the divine array, Wan Wudi seemed to sense something and suddenly looked in the direction of the sacred palace. Immediately, Wan Wudi's figure flashed through the air and quickly broke through the void toward the sacred palace. Only after the 10,000 Martial Emperor left did Qin Yu quietly appear. Looking in the direction of the sacred palace, Qin Yu thought for a moment and did not chase after him. Instead, he flew toward the divine light spell that Wan Wudi had sealed in the void. Shi Tiangang and the others, as top sovereigns, would not be in danger for a short period of time, even if they were trapped. Therefore, at this time, the most important thing to do was to ensure the safety of the descendants of the 3 emperors. When there were no worries, Shi Tiangang and the others would not be threatened. Similarly, when the descendants of the 12 generals fell into their hands, they would have a bargaining chip to deal with the sovereigns of the 12 generals. Therefore, Qin Yu immediately used the heaven evasion stealing technique to directly pass for the chaotic sky divine array and Wan Wudi's restriction and enter the divine light spell. At this time, in the sacred palace, 10,000 Mountain Cauldron. Looking at Wan Wudi, who was slowly walking out with a mighty aura, Shi Tiangong's eyes surged with killing intent. No wonder AI Shi and the other descendants of the 12 generals were so confident in attacking them. It turned out that the force they were colluding with was Wan Wudi. If it were normal times, With the chaotic Sky Divine Array and the Northwest Martial Arts Alliance, the Heavenly Imperial Palace's forces were not afraid of Wan Wuti. However, in this situation where they were colluding with the outside, their situation was extremely bad. The only thing Shi Tiangang was thankful for now was the timely message from Qin Yu. He immediately sealed the Chaotic Heavens Divine Formation and even activated the Chaotic Heavens Divine Formation's greatest secret technique. Otherwise, the 10,000 Mountain Cauldron would have brought in the entire 10,000 martial sects martial artist army. Long time no see, sovereign heavenly firmament. Wan Wuti revered the myriad Mountain Cauldron and greeted Shi Tiangang with a smile. It has indeed been a long time. The last time we met was during the Battle of Lingyuan Mountain 70 years ago. I haven't heard from you for so long that I thought you were dead. Shi Tiangang's voice was somewhat cold. The descendants of the 12 battle generals might have had the intention to rebel long ago. However, without the instigation of the myriad Mountain Cauldron and the myriad martial sect, they definitely wouldn't dare to rebel. Speaking of which, I really have to thank you. That battle back then allowed me to gain some enlightenment. I've been in seclusion all these years, but unfortunately, I still haven't managed to become a divine emperor. The myriad Mountain Cauldron didn't mind Shi Tiangang's attitude and chuckled. How could such a despicable person possibly become a divine emperor? Shi Tiangang smiled coldly. Previously, he had been quite confident when facing off against the descendants of the 12 battle generals. However, with the addition of the myriad Mountain Cauldron, the situation was different. More importantly, the time the myriad Mountain Cauldron spent in the Sacred Palace was enough for him to do many things. Shi Tiangang was a little worried about the safety of his clansmen outside. Despicable? Brother Shi, I didn't expect you to say such childish things after living for so many years. On the path of martial arts, as long as one's mind is clear and there are no demons in one's heart, what difference does it make whether one acts despicable or righteous? Speaking of which, the reason you think I'm despicable is because I interfered with the internal strife of your heavenly imperial palace. However, you should know that the world of martial arts has always been one where the strong are respected. Since your bloodline is no longer strong enough to lead the heavenly imperial palace, it's naturally time for you to give up your position. The myriad Mountain Cauldron was still smiling. What a good the strong are respected. Today, I'd like to see how much stronger you are compared to before. The unmovable stone emperor seal around Shi Tiangang trembled slightly, as if it had materialized, and its divine power was vast and mighty. Sun Jiuxiao and the others also used the three sovereigns' secret techniques. Their auras violently surged, and even the void trembled. Lord Myriad Martial Emperor, how is the situation of my clansmen outside? Seeing that Shi Tiangang and the others were about to erupt with their auras, AI Shiri and the others all became vigilant. However, while they were on guard, AI Shiri and the others were also quite worried about what Shi Tiangang had said before. Don't worry, your clansmen are safe and sound. When this is over, I naturally have a way to let your clansmen escape safely. As the myriad Mountain Cauldron spoke, it flicked its finger. As light flickered, a scene appeared in the sacred palace. It was the scene of the myriad Mountain Cauldron suppressing the divine light incantations in the air. What is that? Seeing the divine light incantations appear in the chaotic heavens' divine formation, AI Shiri and the others breathed a sigh of relief. It was the first time they knew that the chaotic heavens' divine formation had such an ability. It should be a sealing secret technique. However, I've already tested it, and it only has the power of sealing, the myriad Mountain Cauldron said. Damn it, I was a step too late. Seeing this, Shi Tiangang's gaze became even more sinister and terrifying. The final trump card that he could use to threaten the descendants of generals was actually interrupted by the myriad Mountain Cauldron. This way, neither side had any worries, nor any weaknesses that could be used against the other. Whether they lived or died, it would all depend on their own methods. Of course, in truth, they were still at a disadvantage. Indestructible stone emperor seal. Heaven's war emperor transformation. Three emperors world suppression. Shi Tiangang looked at Sun Jiuxiao and the others discreetly. Sun Jiuxiao and the others understood and suddenly attacked. Violent and destructive Tao arts and divine abilities that could destroy the heavens and earth were blasted out. However, they did not attack separately. As they intertwined and cooperated, the indestructible stone emperor seal and heaven's war emperor transformation overlapped and formed an ancient statue. A terrifying pressure that could suppress the 9 heavens and 10 earths was emitted from the statue, as if it wanted to shatter everything in the world. Although AI Shiri and the others had the help of the myriad mountain cauldron, the difference in their battle prowess was enormous. However, if they really fought with their lives on the line, they were absolutely confident that both sides would suffer great losses. If it really reached that stage, Shi Tiangang would definitely drag the myriad mountain cauldron down with him. Azure, ghost divine power. Scarlet sky lightning. Berserk demon spirit. Heavenly fire power. Myriad wood heavenly prison. The azure golden bell. AI Shiri. The ancient martial star. Qi Shuanghai. Mu Qingyun and the other descendants of generals also used their own divine abilities and secret arts. Rumble. The divine abilities and secret arts of both sides were like a mountain torrent crashing into a tsunami. Both sides were sent flying hundreds of feet away. Their auras were incomparably chaotic. Chapter 530. What kind of barrier is this? Shi Tiangong's eyes flashed with disappointment as he looked at the violently shaking sacred palace. Originally, he wanted to use the explosions of the two sides' attacks to break through the sacred palace's barrier, but his plan had failed. While he was disappointed, he was also shocked. He didn't know what kind of barrier the ancient runes that filled the sacred palace were. It only shook after withstanding the shock waves of so many sovereigns' attacks. In fact, even the void was not shattered by the impact. From a certain perspective, this defensive power had already surpassed the chaotic sky divine formation. After all, although the chaotic sky divine formation had the power to disrupt space, it could not completely seal it. This won't do. If you all die, the rest of the plan will be ruined. Just as Shi Tiangang and AI Shiri were about to fight again, the myriad mountain cauldron laughed. Does this guy still have some tricks up his sleeve? Seeing the relaxed expression of the myriad mountain cauldron, Shi Tiangang and the others became extremely cautious. Previously, when they fought with the descendants of the generals, the myriad mountain cauldron did not make a move. Shi Tiangang thought that the myriad mountain cauldron wanted to protect itself, but now it seemed that it had other plans. Wong, Wong, Wong. While Shi Tiangang and the others were on guard, the myriad mountain cauldron suddenly waved its right hand, and a divine stone carved with strange spiritual inscriptions appeared. After the spirit rune stone trembled violently, it suddenly exploded with a bang. Specks of divine light scattered and filled the entire sacred palace. The divine light seemed illusory as it directly penetrated the indestructible stone emperor seals around Shi Tiangang and the others. Even the true Yuan shields and divine abilities and secret techniques could not stop it. Shi Tiangang and the others, who had nowhere to hide, were all infected by the divine light. Not only Shi Tiangang and the other descendants of the 3 emperors, but also AI Shiri and the other descendants of the 12 generals. This is, seeing the smile on the myriad mountain cauldron's face become even wider, Shi Tiangong's heart sank. He had an ominous feeling. After carefully sensing it, shock flashed in his eyes. Primordial divine power, the divine light that infected them, unable to be expelled or purified, was actually primordial divine power. Not good. The instant the divine light of primordial divine power entered their bodies, the divine power of all the sovereigns in the Sky Emperor Palace, which had fused with their true Yuan, began to boil. It felt as if the primordial divine power in his true Yuan was about to explode. They could only use their Tao, arts, and true essence to desperately suppress the rampaging primordial divine power in their bodies. Could it be Shi Tiangong's mind involuntarily surfaced? Qin Yu had once said that the extraterritorial devil race could suppress the ancient divine power in their bodies. Just like the sacrificial evil god dynasty, the myriad martial sect also had the shadow of the extraterritorial devil race behind them. Or could it be that the 10,000 martial sect had already thoroughly studied the ancient divine power and could completely control the extraterritorial devil race? What do you want? Compared to Shi Tiangang, who had some clues, AI Shi and the others were completely shocked. This unforeseen event was not part of their plan. Could it be that the myriad mountain cauldron wanted to eliminate them as well? What do you want? Isn't that obvious? The myriad mountain cauldron's face turned cold. Of course I'm going to kill you all. Hearing the words of the 10,000 mountain cauldron, the expressions of AI Shi and the other descendants of battle generals changed greatly. Not only did the myriad mountain cauldron want to use their hands to deal with Shi Tiangang and the others, but it also wanted to kill them. He actually wanted to eliminate them as well. This greatly surpassed their expectations. At this time, Shi Tiangang and the other descendants of the three sovereigns did not have the time to gloat. They were all using all their strength to suppress the rampaging primordial divine power in their bodies. If they were to fight in their current state, they would not be able to unleash their full power. They could not even unleash 20% of their strength in battle and could only be slaughtered by the myriad mountain cauldron. You dare to break the heart demon oath? AI Ri's pupils shrank, and a chill rose in his heart. Not only did the myriad mountain cauldron swear the heart demon oath, but it was also hit by the mad devil curse. More than half of the younger generation of the 10,000 martial sect were suppressed in their secret realm. The myriad mountain cauldron actually dared to betray them. This made AI Shi feel incredulous. Mad devil curse. The ancient martial star reacted instantly, and his hands formed a seal, activating the mad devil curse in the myriad mountain cauldron. A low explosion came from within the myriad mountain cauldron, causing its body to tremble violently. However, as Peng Bai's divine power boiled, the myriad mountain cauldron's pale face immediately regained its color. The mad devil curse in its body emitted a violent, destructive aura that was forcefully suppressed. How could this be? This scene caused the ancient martial star to be stunned. Even AI Shi Tiangang, and the others were stunned. The power of the mad devil curse went deep into the bone marrow and merged with the soul. Even a peak sovereign venerable would be severely injured if not killed by this curse. However, the myriad mountain cauldron was completely unharmed after withstanding the power of the mad devil curse. Moreover, it suppressed the mad devil curse in an instant. Such a method was completely beyond their understanding. The power of this curse is quite strong. I don't want to endure it again. The myriad mountain cauldron looked at the ancient martial star whose hands had changed again and suddenly attacked. A vast divine power swept over. It suppressed the rampaging primordial divine power while suppressing the mutated ancient martial star. It was too late to react and could only watch as the myriad mountain cauldron's killing move came crashing down. Rumble. Shi Tiangang and the other descendants of the three sovereigns, as well as AI Shi and the other descendants of battle generals, joined forces to block the myriad mountain cauldron's divine power. At this time, Shi Tiangang and the others did not care about the betrayal of AI Shi and the others. Their biggest enemy now was the myriad mountain cauldron. If they could not destroy the myriad mountain cauldron, all of them would die. Pucci. Unfortunately, even if everyone from the Heavenly Imperial Palace joined forces, with their current combat strength, they could not withstand the myriad mountain cauldron's attack. After one move, they were all severely injured and flew backward while vomiting blood. Explode. The ancient martial star took the opportunity to unleash the mad devil curse again. However, the result was the same. Swoosh. The ancient martial star's actions seemed to have completely angered the myriad mountain cauldron. Its figure flickered, and like a ghost, it appeared in front of the ancient martial star in an instant and pointed a finger. The ancient martial star's head exploded before he could react. His flesh and blood were instantly annihilated, and his emperor soul was completely destroyed. The ancient martial star was dead. I told you not to use it again. Why didn't you listen? The myriad mountain cauldron calmly retracted its hand, and its expression did not change. Killing a peak sovereign venerable seemed to be a piece of cake for it. I'll kill you. Ai Shuri and the other descendants of battle generals were on the verge of tears. Among the descendants of the mad demon battle general, a high-level sovereign venerable roared and rushed toward the myriad mountain cauldron. As he rushed out, an incomparably destructive fluctuation of Tao art spread out from his body. Shi Tiangong's expression changed. He immediately ordered the descendants of the three sovereigns to retreat and strengthen the defense of the indestructible stone emperor seal. In front of me, you can't even self-destruct. What Shi Tiangang could see, the myriad mountain cauldron could naturally see as well. With a casual wave of its hand, the descendant of the mad demon battle general who rushed out stiffened and fell from mid-air, crashing heavily on the ground. Chapter 531. Divine runes that resembled steel wires appeared on the skin of the descendant of the berserk demon war general, wrapping around him. These divine runes emerged from his flesh, bones, and organs. Although the berserk demon general's descendant was still alive, he looked no different from a cripple. Bang! The myriad mountain cauldron stomped down and crushed the berserk demon general's descendant, causing blood to splatter everywhere. If you don't want to die, I advise you to behave. After killing two sovereigns, the myriad mountain cauldron's eyes became somewhat indifferent and impatient. What? Didn't you want to kill us and then annex my sky emperor palace? Shi Tiangang asked coldly, suppressing the killing intent in his heart. If not for the ancient divine power in his true essence being difficult to suppress, Shi Tiangang would have attacked long ago. I'll give you two choices. First, hand over your origin soul energy and serve me from now on. Then, I can spare your lives. As for the second, I'll kill you now and then exterminate your clansmen so that your two branches of Sky Emperor Palace will completely disappear from this world. The myriad mountain cauldron did not reply to Shi Tiangang and spoke indifferently. As it spoke, the myriad mountain cauldron opened its right hand, and a pitch-black and evil ancient talisman appeared. Everyone from Sky Emperor Palace paled at the myriad mountain cauldron's words. Of the two choices the myriad mountain cauldron spoke of, choosing the former meant becoming a slave or servant. Choosing the latter meant exterminating their clansmen. But to Shi Tiangang and the others, while these seemed like two paths, they actually had no choice. No matter which one they chose, they would undoubtedly die. Even if they chose the first path, Shi Tiangang and the others did not believe that the myriad mountain cauldron would allow their clansmen to live. After using them, the myriad mountain cauldron would probably slaughter them to prevent any future troubles. What? Is it very hard to choose? If it's hard to choose, I'll help you. The myriad mountain cauldron slowly opened its right hand and destructive divine power gathered in its palm. Everyone from Sky Emperor Palace felt their hearts palpitate and their hairs stand on end. Wait! At this moment, a hoarse voice rang out and a figure stepped forward. When Shi Tiangang and the rest of the three sovereigns heard that hoarse voice, their expressions changed slightly as they tilted their heads to look. The person who stood out was none other than Sun Guxing. Big brother. Sun Jiuxiao and Sun Yunlang couldn't believe it. Sun Guxing had actually submitted to the 10,000 Mountains Cauldron. Palace Master, do you really want the great work of our ancestors to be ruined in our hands? Sun Guxing did not pay any attention to them. He only stopped when he walked past the stone hall. However, after saying that, Sun Guxing once again walked towards the myriad mountains cauldron. Shi Tiangang looked at the calm Sun Guxing and seemed to have thought of something. The corners of his eyes twitched involuntarily. "This is my origin soul power." Sun Gushing strode towards the 10,000 Mountains cauldron. Starlight flickered between his eyebrows as his face paled. A wisp of origin soul power surrounded by starlight appeared and floated toward the pitch-black, evil ancient talisman in the myriad mountain cauldron's palm. "That's right. Feng Weijun, you know how to adapt to circumstances." A smile appeared at the corners of the myriad mountain cauldron's mouth. However, before he could finish his sentence, he suddenly stopped. Immediately after, an extremely terrifying will descended with a loud rumble, causing the pitch-black, evil ancient talisman to explode. Puff, puff, puff. 9 starlight spears appeared out of nowhere and pierced through the myriad mountain cauldron with destructive power. Puff! At the same time, the pale-faced Sun Gushing could no longer be bothered to suppress the ancient divine power in his body. He formed a seal with his hands. Immediately after, he slapped his chest and spat out a mouthful of essence blood, which fused into the 9 starlight spears. As the essence blood fused into the 9 starlight spears, a terrifying soul power appeared within them. In an instant, the myriad mountain cauldron's limbs and bones were sealed, making it impossible for him to break free. After doing all this, Sun Gushing fell to the ground with a thud. His aura became indistinct. "Big brother." Sun Jiuxiao and Sun Yunlang's expressions changed drastically as they immediately rushed towards Sun Gushing. Whoosh! However, there was someone who was even faster than them. Almost at the same time that Sun Gushing withdrew his origin soul power, Shi Tiangang suddenly rushed out. A divine talisman appeared in his hand, and he slapped it onto the myriad mountain cauldron's forehead. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Immediately, an extremely fierce divine fire burned from the divine talisman and instantly engulfed the myriad mountain cauldron. Amidst a miserable howl, the myriad mountain cauldron was completely burned to ashes by the divine fire. Its body and soul were completely destroyed. Phew! After succeeding, Shi Tiangang let out a huge sigh of relief. What Sun Gushing had used before was a supreme, secret technique that only diviners could pass down. It contained the wills and seals left behind by generations of diviners in the Sky Emperor Palace. The power of that attack was so great that even a divine emperor would not be able to break free from it. Of course, the price was also extremely high. One could tell from Sun Gushing's appearance. In the Sky Emperor Palace, other than the diviner Sun Gushing, only the palace master, Shi Tiangang, knew about this secret technique. Therefore, when Sun Gushing stepped out, Shi Tiangang had already guessed Sun Gushing's intentions. "The myriad mountain cauldron is dead. We are safe. This is great." This sudden series of changes caused the others in the Sky Emperor Palace to be unable to react at all. It was only when they saw the myriad mountain cauldron burn to ashes that they came to their senses. A strong feeling of surviving a calamity appeared in their hearts. In that instant, they really thought that they were going to die. Fortunately, Sun Gushing had mastered such a secret technique that could instantly kill a peak sovereign like the myriad mountain cauldron. Otherwise, the Sky Emperor Palace would have died at the hands of the myriad mountain cauldron alone. How was the situation? Shi Tiangang immediately rushed to Sun Gushing's side. After carefully sensing his condition, his eyes dimmed. Although Sun Gushing was still alive, nearly half of his origin source soul power was destroyed. He was now on the brink of death. Whether or not he could survive was still unknown. Damn it! Sun Jiuxiao and Sun Yunlang had already sensed Sun Gushing's condition. While suppressing the rampaging primordial divine power in Sun Gushing's body, they also stared at AI, Shi and the others with murderous intent. If AI, Shi and the others had not rebelled and let a wolf into the house, they would not have fallen to such a state. As expected of the descendants of the 3 ancient sovereigns, they really cannot be underestimated. Just as Sun Jiuxiao and Sun Yunlang's murderous, intense sword, and they could not wait to attack the descendants of the 12 war generals. A cold voice suddenly sounded from a corner of his sacred palace. How is this possible? Hearing that voice, the bodies of everyone in the Sky Emperor Palace stiffened. Shi Tiangang slowly tilted his head and looked at the figure that stepped out from the corner of the barrier. His eyes were almost lifeless. That person was the myriad mountain cauldron that had been burned to ashes. Chapter 532. If it weren't for the divine ancestors' order to warn me of the dangers of this plan, I might have really died at your hands. The 10,000 mountain cauldron's eyes were cold and indifferent. A set of heavy armor appeared on its body, and it held a giant saber in its hand. That's fake. Shi Tiangang looked at the ground that had been burned to ashes by the divine talisman, and his eyes froze. Sun Gushing went all out, even sacrificing his own life to create an opportunity for them to succeed. It wasn't the 10,000 mountain cauldron's true body. I originally wanted to keep you alive so that you could be of some use, but now you can all die. As the 10,000 mountain cauldron spoke, the giant saber in its hand filled with divine inscriptions and a vast divine might. Shi Tiangang and the others, who were suppressing the rampaging divine power in their bodies, paled and could only do their best to resist. Whoosh! But suddenly, an almost undetectable sound broke through the air. Who is it? The 10,000 mountain cauldron, who had been swinging its saber, changed its attack and turned around to slash out. With a bang, a chaotic and terrifying shockwave exploded and swept out in all directions. Whoosh! A figure flashed through the air, and a three-colored light appeared. Immediately, the people of Sky Emperor Palace and the Sacred Palace all disappeared. When the chaotic shockwave dissipated, a figure appeared in front of the 10,000 mountain cauldron. Hand over Sky Emperor Palace and the others, and I'll leave your corpse intact. Seeing Shi Tiangang and the others disappear, the 10,000 mountain cauldron's face darkened as it coldly stared at the person who had appeared. Leave my corpse intact. If it's you, you're still lacking. The only person who could rush over at this time was naturally Qinyu. In fact, when Sun Gushing had used the secret technique, Qinyu had already used the heaven evasion technique to pass through the barrier. However, because he saw that the 10,000 mountain cauldron wasn't its true body, he couldn't find it. Thus, Qinyu restrained himself and didn't attack. You're courting death. The 10,000 mountain cauldron was enraged. It stepped forward and slashed out with its giant saber. A dazzling saber light tore through the air and slashed at Qinyu. Halfway through the attack, the saber light immediately split into several rays, forming an encirclement attack. Break! Qinyu was not afraid at all. Divine light flickered in his hand, and a pitch-black divine spear appeared. Shortly after, the dragon patterns in his body spread to his flesh, blood, and bones. Vast divine power surged out of his body as he charged forward. Rumble! With a stab of his spear, the several destructive blade lights were shattered by Qinyu before they could even get close to Qinyu. As the void trembled, the pitch-black spear pierced through the air like a shunran, viciously stabbing toward the myriad mountain cauldron. He actually has such a vast amount of divine power. The 10,000 mountains cauldron was shocked by Qinyu's burst of divine power, but its reaction was also very fast. The treasured saber in its hand slashed out like a hurricane. The flickering of the saber lights dazzled everyone's eyes. There were too many to count. Moreover, every single blade light contained the might of a Tao art that caused one's heart to tremble. Qinyu's gaze sharpened. All the destructive saber lights were blocked. Not a single one managed to land on Qinyu. Dang, 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 dang. Within the spacious sacred hall, Qinyu and the myriad mountain cauldron engaged in an intense battle. Both sides used their most powerful killing moves, divine powers, and secret arts, vowing to kill the other party. This person's battle power is probably not below Shi Tiangong's. The Heavenly Imperial Palace is indeed hiding an expert. The longer the battle dragged on, the more shocked the myriad mountain cauldron became. Qinyu was not using Shun Feng's appearance right now. He had disguised himself as an ordinary-looking man and used the combination of the chaotic sky divine array, ancient divine power, and the battle dragon secret art. The Myriad Mountain Cauldron naturally could not recognize Chinyu. If it were any other time, I would not be able to take you down in a short amount of time, but now. A cold smile appeared on the Myriad Mountain Cauldron's face. After another fierce clash, the ancient and profound divine power of the primordial era flashed from his body. Specks of divine light swept through the world and merged into Chinyu's body. Divine chaos. Seeing this, the cold smile on the Myriad Mountain Cauldron's face deepened. Its war saber floated in the air as its hands rapidly formed a hand seal. Immediately, a powerful chaotic ripple spread from Chinyu's body. That Chinyu who was rushing over explosively with his vast divine energy suddenly stiffened. Then, he fell from the sky, dying. The Myriad Mountain Cauldron laughed maniacally as it charged forward with its saber in hand. That incomparably frightening might seemed to be able to split even the heavens. Destroy. But suddenly, the chaotic divine power ripple on Chinyu's body disappeared. Chinyu, who had fallen from the sky, suddenly shot up into the sky without any warning. This sudden change caused the Myriad Mountain Cauldron to turn pale with fright. Pucci! A pitch-black spear light flashed through the void, and the Myriad Mountain's cauldron was pierced through by the pitch-black spear light. A huge bloody hole appeared in the Myriad Mountain Cauldron's chest. If it had not used its divine powers and secret arts to move to the side at the last moment, it would have been its head that had been blasted. You can actually control the ancient divine power. Who are you? The moment it was attacked, the Myriad Mountain Cauldron immediately retreated. It sensed that the chaotic ancient divine power ripple on Chinyu's body had disappeared, and its pupils shrank in shock. The ultimate move of the Heaven Realm's D-Zune, which had been tested time and time again, was actually ineffective against Chinyu. This was completely out of the Myriad Mountain Cauldron's expectations. That was why it was unable to defend in time and was hit by the heavy cannon, almost dying at the hands of Chinyu. I'm the one who will kill you. Chinyu's eyes were cold as he charged forward with his spear without any hesitation. Do you really think that you can fight me after injuring me by luck? The Myriad Mountain Cauldron was furious, and its face twisted. The bloody hole in its chest quickly healed by using a secret art. Chinyu's combat strength was indeed comparable to Shi Tiangong's. However, it could clearly sense that Chinyu had used the chaotic sky divine array and the ancient divine power to have such combat strength. Without the two, Chinyu's combat strength was far inferior to theirs. Therefore, even though the Myriad Mountain Cauldron was heavily injured, it was not afraid of Chinyu even if it did not interfere with the ancient divine power in Chinyu's body. After all, their cultivations were all obtained through steady cultivation. Compared to Chinyu, who relied on external forces, their foundation was much more stable. Now, no one in the Sky Emperor Palace could help Chinyu. As long as it was not careless, the Myriad Mountain Cauldron did not believe that it could not take down Chinyu. Chinyu's lips curled into a cold smile. He did not reduce his speed at all, and instead charged forward at an even faster speed. 9 slashes of the God King, shattering heaven and destroying earth. The Myriad Mountain Cauldron clenched the hilt of his saber with both hands and used the 1,000 Martial Sect's former God King's ultimate move. As the divine master of the 1,000 Martial Sect, the God King bloodline in the 1,000 Mountain Cauldron's body was naturally not weaker than Wan Wuya's. Therefore, the God King's 9 fists had been modified by the Myriad Mountain Cauldron, and its power had increased. As the blade slashed out, 9 dazzling blade lights shot out like 9 ferocious dragons. They bared their fangs and claws as they pounced at Chinyu, as if wanting to tear Chinyu to pieces. Wherever the 9 sharp blade lights passed, the space around the sacred hall, which was filled with barriers, seemed to be torn apart by the blade lights. From this, one could see how terrifying this move of the Myriad Mountain Cauldron was. Chapter 533. Don't think that you're the only one who can mess with divine power. The cold smile on the face of Yu, who was thrusting out with his spear, grew even more intense. A mysterious ripple spread from the divine power imprint. Rumble. An extremely chaotic divine power ripple came from the 10,000 Mountain Cauldron. The 10,000 Mountain Cauldron could control ancient divine power because it had ancient divine power in its body. Moreover, the 10,000 Mountain Cauldron's ancient divine power far surpassed Kong Shadding's in both quantity and power. Thus, when Yu controlled the divine power imprint to mess with the ancient divine power in the 10,000 Mountain Cauldron, half of the 10,000 Mountain Cauldron's body exploded. More than half of the myriad Mountain Cauldron's body exploded, and blood spurted out. Oh no! The 10,000 Mountain Cauldron's eyes widened, and a strange ripple appeared in its emperor soul. Whoosh! At this moment, Yu's figure flashed through the air and shattered the terrifying 9 slashes of the God King. In a flash, he appeared in front of the 10,000 Mountain Cauldron and pierced its head with his spear. Sealing divine light spread and the soul-devouring curse gathered. The 10,000 Mountain Cauldron's emperor soul was immediately suppressed and sealed. How did you do it? As a peak emperor expert, the 10,000 Mountain Cauldron's head was pierced and its emperor soul was suppressed. It still had a shocking amount of life force and had not completely died. However, at the moment of its death, the 10,000 Mountain Cauldron's eyes were filled with endless confusion. The reason why Yu was able to ignore the interference of his divine power before was because he had completely refined the ancient era's divine power. Just now, Yu had clearly done the same thing and could interfere with other people's divine power. This was not refining, but completely controlling. After all, suppressing ancient divine power, interfering with ancient divine power, and burning ancient divine power. This was a supreme secret technique that only the high-level experts of the Outerium Devil race were able to grasp. Now, Yu could also do this, which shocked the 10,000 Mountain Cauldron. Soul-devouring curse, soul-refining. Even though Yu was about to die, he was not stupid enough to reveal his trump card. The moment he suppressed the 10,000 Mountain Cauldron's Emperor Soul, Yu immediately used the soul-devouring curse to search the 10,000 Mountain Cauldron soul. Judging from the myriad Mountain Cauldron's appearance, it was clearly related to the extraterritorial devil race. This time, the myriad martial sect was preparing to invade the heavenly imperial palace. It was definitely related to the extraterritorial devil race's overall plan. Therefore, Yu wanted to take this opportunity to figure out the extraterritorial devil's intentions. However, Yu's soul-searching seemed to have triggered some kind of restriction. Pitch-black, evil, demonic flames appeared in the sovereign spirit of the myriad mountains cauldron, and the entire cauldron burned. Even Yu's soul-devouring curse was ignited. This was a flame born from ancient divine power. Even the golden heaven incinerating fire could not devour it. In an instant, the myriad mountain cauldron's sovereign spirit was burned to ashes. Even its physical body was burned to ashes. Yu raised his eyebrows slightly. Just now, Yu had vaguely seen the myriad mountain cauldron within the blazing demonic flames. It was looking at him from extremely far distance, completely unharmed. Could it be that this isn't the main body? Yu's eyes flashed. The myriad mountain cauldron was known as one of the top sovereigns of the spiritual state. However, judging from its previous combat strength, it really did not have the strength of a top sovereign spirit of the spiritual state. Of course, it could also be because of the suppression and interference of the ancient divine power, causing it to be unable to display its strength at all. It was the same as Shirtian and the others. Boom! At this moment, an explosion came from Yu's Sumeru ring. As the myriad mountain cauldron was killed, the chaotic ancient divine power in the bodies of the people of the Sky Emperor Palace calmed down. The two sides, which were originally absorbed into the 3 universe rings at different levels, directly shattered and the 3 universe rings appeared. The moment the myriad mountain cauldron's sovereign spirit self-ignited spiritual state Myriad Martial Peak. The Myriad Martial Sect, one of the 7 top forces of the spiritual state, was located on this giant peak. In a palace in the core area of the Myriad Martial Sect, a figure suddenly opened his eyes, and a vast divine power spread out. This person was the Saint Master of the Myriad Martial Sect, the Myriad Mountain Cauldron. The situation was as Chinyu had expected. The Myriad Mountain Cauldron that he had killed was not the Myriad Mountain Cauldron's true body. However, the Myriad Mountain Cauldron's current divine power could not hide its weakness. If I hadn't cultivated the 5 elements divine clone, I would have died in the Sky Emperor Palace. Where did that person come from? The Myriad Mountain Cauldron swallowed several ancient spirit pills, and its expression was extremely gloomy. It wanted nothing more than to grind Chinyu's bones to dust. The 5 elements divine clone was an extremely powerful divine power that was condensed from the ancient divine power. When cultivated to the peak, one could condense 5 clones. The Myriad Mountain Cauldron had been destroyed by Shi Tiangang was the 5 elements divine clone. Similarly, Chinyu had also killed the 5 elements divine clone. The only difference was that the clone used to deal with Shi Tiangang, and the others was the 5 elements divine clone. However, when fighting with Chinyu, it was the Myriad Mountain Cauldron's true body. However, the instant Chinyu interfered with his ancient divine power, the Myriad Mountain Cauldron felt an intense sense of danger. Therefore, he immediately used a forbidden technique and swapped places with the 5 elements divine clone in the Myriad Martial Sect, although he had to pay a huge price to use this forbidden technique. However, compared to losing his life, this price was much better. The Sky Emperor Palace plan is cancelled. After thinking for a moment, an ancient jade stone appeared in the Myriad Mountain Cauldron's hand. After saying this, the Myriad Mountain Cauldron directly crushed the ancient jade stone. The Myriad Mountain Cauldron was informing the hundreds of Emperor Realm Masters who were heading to the Sky Emperor Palace. Qin, you could completely control the ancient divine power, and the hundreds of Emperor Realm Masters had also fused with the ancient divine power. If he were to be plotted against by Chinyu, he would most likely end up with a 90% chance of dying. It was not easy to nurture so many Emperor Realm Masters in the Heaven Domain, and they could not throw them all away before they had achieved anything. Not long after the 10,000 Mountain Cauldron gave the order, 2 figures barged into the cauldron. Holy Master? The 2 people who came in were the white-bearded old man and the white-haired young man. They were originally puzzled, but when they saw the heavily injured Myriad Mountain Cauldron, their faces changed. The Myriad Mountain Cauldron was actually so heavily injured. Could it have encountered a divine Emperor Realm Master? Immediately send a secret message to the divine ancestor. The plan to invade the Heaven Domain is temporarily suspended. The Myriad Mountain Cauldron sat cross-legged and said while refining the spirit pill in his body, "Holy Master, what happened?" The white-bearded old man and the white-haired young man were both shocked. They could only cooperate with the divine ancestor's plan. As for stopping it, they did not have the right. If they acted rashly, the divine ancestor would blame them, and it would be difficult for them to even die. There is already someone in the Heaven Domain who can completely control the ancient divine power. His control is enough to crush me. The Myriad Mountain Cauldron said solemnly. It can't be. How is that possible? The white-bearded old man and the white-haired young man both turned pale and were shocked. Controlling the ancient divine power was a supreme secret technique that the divine ancestor and the others had comprehended after countless years of research. How could the Heaven Domain completely control the ancient divine power in such a short period of time? Is it someone from the Heavenly Imperial Palace? The white-haired young man looked at the heavily injured Myriad Mountain Cauldron and asked hurriedly, "This person indeed knows the divine ability of the Heavenly Imperial Palace, but the other means he has are not the secret techniques of the Heavenly Imperial Palace. We need to investigate carefully," the Myriad Mountain Cauldron said as Chinyu's disguised appearance was revealed. Chapter 534. Could it be that the news from the central continent of the heaven region is true? The white-bearded elder seemed to have thought of something and said in shock, "What news?" The myriad mountain cauldron and the white-shirted youth both looked over. Rumor has it that there is a force in the middle continent that has been secretly studying the primordial divine power. However, that was a few years ago. The divine ancestor didn't mention the primordial divine power project, so I didn't pay much attention to it. The white-bearded elder said, "The middle continent? Which force is it?" The myriad mountain cauldron looked very serious. This was no small matter. The middle continent was the place where the top experts of the Qing Yun realm gathered. Although there were many forces and clans there, the spiritual state couldn't compare at all. They still hadn't found out how deep the middle continent's waters were. At that time, I only heard some rumors and didn't find any clues. At that time, I thought it was just a rumor. Now that I think about it, it's very likely that someone wiped out the source of the news. The white-bearded elder shook his head slightly. If he had found out, he would have reported it to the divine ancestor. It was because he couldn't find any clues that he didn't take this matter seriously. Let's send this news back as well. The divine ancestor's plan in the Qing Yun realm is far beyond our imagination. There should be a way to find out the origin of this person and whether the news is true or false. The myriad mountain cauldron said. The white-bearded elder and the white-shirted youth left quickly after hearing this. At the same time, in the heavenly imperial palace in the northern region of the spiritual state, the people of the myriad martial sect really withdrew their troops and left. At the peak of the heavenly imperial palace, Shi Tiangang heaved a sigh of relief after receiving news of the myriad martial sect's movements from the spies. Shi Tianyun, Sun Jiuxiao, and the other core sovereigns also relaxed. Although they were all people who had experienced life and death battles, today's unforeseen event was still terrifying. Even now, they still felt fear in their hearts, as if they had survived a calamity. If it wasn't for the mysterious person's sudden appearance, all of them would have died at the hands of the myriad mountain cauldron. Palace Master, who is that person? After the danger was resolved, the attention of many descendants of the three emperors had descended onto Qin Yu, who disguised himself. Not only did he save Sun Shiyu and the other members of the three royal families, but he also captured the clansmen of the 12 war generals. More importantly, the myriad mountain cauldron seemed to have been forced back by him. This made everyone from the Sky Emperor Palace curious about Qin Yu's background. He's a good friend of mine. Don't reveal anything about him to anyone else. Otherwise, I'll punish you severely. The other three empresses did not know, but Shi Tiangang, Sun Jiuxiao, and Sun Yunlang could roughly guess. Under such circumstances, who else in the Sky Emperor Palace could appear at such a critical moment and have the strength to repel the myriad mountains cauldron? Other than Qin Yu, they really couldn't think of a second person. And Qin Yu was nowhere to be seen until now, which further confirmed their guesses. Then, how should we deal with the 12 generals and the others? When the descendants of the three emperors heard this, they thought that Qin Yu was someone important and did not inquire further. Instead, they asked a more difficult question. I'll deal with this matter. You guys are in charge of the defense of the palace to prevent others from taking advantage of the loopholes. After Shi Tiangang gave his orders, he descended from midair. The other members of the Sky Emperor Palace went to make preparations. The Sky Emperor Palace had just experienced a great battle between the 6 sects launched by the evil sacrificial god court and had suffered a lot of losses. This time, the descendants of the war generals had colluded with the myriad mountain cauldron. Not only was Sun Guxing's life uncertain, but the battle strength of the 12 generals could no longer be used. The Sky Emperor Palace could be said to be extremely weak now. Once the 10,000 martial sects spread the news, it was very likely that there would be a great upheaval. And the ones that they needed to guard against the most were the Tianyang Holy Land and the Sage Divine Dynasty. The world of martial artists practiced the law of the jungle, where the strong preyed on the weak. A lion would only see a rabbit as food and would not join forces with it. If the Tianyang Holy Land and the Sage Divine Dynasty knew that the strength of the Sky Emperor Palace had been reduced by half, What would they do? They could not predict what they would do. Therefore, the treatment of the descendants of the 12 generals had always been a big problem in their minds. Of course, other than the 12 generals, there was another big problem, which was the primordial divine power that had been integrated into the true Yuan. They had to think of a way to completely purify the primordial divine power. The Myriad Mountain Cauldron had only used Ji Jing to trap them, but all of them were no match for the Myriad Mountain Cauldron alone. The suppression of the primordial divine power and the threat of chaos were like a sharp blade hanging over their heads that could kill them at any time. But now, the situation was special. All of them would have to go into seclusion to think of a way to purify and expel the primordial divine power. Sun Jiuxiao and Sun Yunlang went to check on Sun Guxing. Among the descendants of the three kings, Sun Guxing was the one with the most serious injuries. Whether Sun Guxing could survive was still another matter. Because of this, Sun Jiuxiao and Sun Yunlang could not wait to tear Qi Shi Ri and the other war general's descendants into pieces. Shun Feng, there are no outsiders now, so there's no need to disguise yourself. Shi Tiangang appeared in a palace hall and said to Qin Yu, who had turned into an unprepossessing appearance, "As expected, you saw through me." Qin Yu smiled and returned to Shun Feng's appearance. "I have something to ask you." Shi Tiangang saw this and said, "About the primordial divine power?" Qin Yu asked, "That's right. How did you control the primordial divine power?" Shi Tiangang nodded slightly. After the Myriad Mountain Cauldron disappeared, they, Qi Shi Ri and the others broke the 3 universe rings and rushed out. Originally, Qi Shi Ri and the others did not want to be captured without putting up a fight. In the end, Qin Yu secretly used the same method as the Myriad Mountain Cauldron, directly causing the primordial divine power in the 12 war generals' descendants to go berserk. This allowed them to easily suppress all the 12 war generals' Emperor Realm Masters. It's a long story. When the primordial divine ruins appeared, I obtained an opportunity inside. Qin Yu did not tell Shi Tiangang about the divine power imprint. After all, it was useless to tell him. Without divine power crystals, it was impossible to condense the divine power imprint. Since you can control the primordial divine power, you should have a way to separate the primordial divine power from your true Yuan, right? Seeing this, Shi Tiangang did not ask any further. What he was truly concerned about was the primordial divine power that had fused with his true Yuan. As long as the primordial divine power in his true Yuan was purified, whether he could control the primordial divine power or not would have no effect on them. The primordial divine power that you have fused with your true Yuan has already completely fused with it. If you want to expel it, you had to start from the true Yuan origin in your Dantian. You should know what this means, right? Qin Yu said. Shi Tiangong's brows twitched. He understood the meaning of Qin Yu's words. To an ordinary cultivator, true essence source, Tao technique comprehension, and sovereign spirit energy were all indispensable. If any of these were damaged, then their cultivation would be reduced by half a point, and they would have to give up on the martial Tao. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.